just when you thought it was safe to go onto iTunes. This is Next Level Guy, the only website that makes self-development as fun as going to the movies. It's time to take the red pill and escape the Matrix.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Next Level Guy Show podcast with your host Ian Dawson-Mackay. Next Level Guy is a men's interview, interest and improvement website where I interview the greats from all industries to help others better their lives. Listen to the experts in their respective fields being quizzed and learn something new. Listen, embrace, adapt it for you, use it and improve. Today's guest is BJJ coaching guru Nick Chewy Albin. Nick is a BJJ, which by the way stands for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, competitor, coach and owner of Chewjitsu, which is a YouTube training channel and its associated BJJ training facility in Louisville, Kentucky. This guy's been an amazing help to me on my own BJJ journey, and he's a must follow for all beginners and experts alike. He's an encyclopedia of training videos, and he covers all mental aspects as well as the physical training, skills, submissions, etc. And you really cannot have him in your Rolodex of training videos. He's an awesome coach and a great guy. In this interview, we discuss a lot of different concepts and then outline the joys of BJJ and why I think every person needs to try it regardless of your current situation. In the interview, we look at things like his story, Jiu-Jitsu obviously, how life-changing training can be, the role models in his life, training methods, his outlook on life, and so much more. It goes on for about 2 hours, so just sit back and enjoy. Nick is throwing gem after gem in this one. I practically had to give up trying to record them all down as there's so many. So just sit back, like I say, chill and relax. Please note this was recorded back in July 2018, but it's still as fresh and vibrant as other recordings. Anybody and everybody can get something from this. It doesn't matter if you're just starting out in your jiu-jitsu journey or you're an absolute expert. This is a great interview and everybody will get something from this. Some things have changed since then. I'm now a 4-tab white belt, chasing down my blue belt. I feel much more centered, controlled, and a considerably more developed and skilled practitioner than I was when I first recorded this. And I understand Jiu-Jitsu a bit better now. It's thanks to guys like Nick for this evolution of me as a Jiu-Jitsu competitor as well as a person. This is why I like doing this podcast. It allows me to interview guys like this and help introduce them to guys like you. And apologies, yes, I do know I sat too far back away from my mic back then, so the sound is a bit crap in places, but I didn't want to tinker too much with the sound and lose the authenticness of the interview. But before we get to the interview, as usual, I just want to give you a quick shout out about my affiliates. Now, I've set up some great relationships with some awesome companies. This allows me, obviously, to get some discount codes, special offers, and listener exclusives that not anybody else will get a chance to go to. So if you get a chance, go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and also sign up for my newsletter, which you'll find a lot of the special offers which will not be published on the site. So, for example, if you're wanting to get fit, internally and externally, then you need to try out some of the awesome fitness gear and supplements that Onnit makes. Onnit make things like steel maces, cognitive enhancers like Alpha Brain, to truly amazing lines of kettlebells in the shape of animals and superheroes and so much more. You'd be amazed at the stuff they do. So you need to try onnit.com. If you use the code NEXTLEVELGUY, which is NEXTLEVELGUY, in the discount code section of the checkout, you'll get 10% off all eligible items in your basket of great supplements and fitness gear. They are also offering a number of free trials of supplements that you should take advantage of just now. If you get them, I think you just pay for shipping, and it allows you to sample what works for you, what supplements work best for your training goals before you have to commit to buying a full bag and use and abuse them. There's a lot of great deals out there. For other affiliates, for just now, I currently love and would love you to try the Natural, which is a pickup video guidance course by RSD Max. This will help you become a natural woman. I also am loving Ross Edgley's new book, which is the world's fittest book. You can get that through my Amazon link. He provides some awesome advice on training, health, nutrition, and building a successful life. It doesn't matter your goal, you'll find the philosophy and tactics in there for you to achieve it. Ross, you'll probably have seen in the news, has just finished swimming around Great Britain. He never stepped on dry land except when he was sleeping on the boat, and he's just finished that. It's an amazing achievement, and you'll find the philosophy, the tactics, the skills, the training methods that he utilised, and tips on nutrition, etc. in this book. Trust me, it's an amazing read. I've read it through and now I'm rereading it. You cannot, no matter your training level, you'll get something from it in here. Something else I'm loving is my Kindle. I do a lot of traveling, so it's great for sitting and passing the time when traveling, web surfing, watching some Prime videos and stuff like that. It's also great for reading ebooks. Like just now, I'm rereading the Harry Potter book. I don't care who knows about it, they're epic, and it's really something, no matter their age, you should buy them. A Kindle is a great gift for you, but with things like Christmas coming up, treat yourself, treat somebody else in the family, become Santa for a needy child. Use and abuse these links. That's what they're there for. You can go on to Barbell Apparel, for example, and get 10% off all the great jeans and polo shirts, which are designed for muscular guys. What's the point in going to the gym and having big and baggy clothes? You should use the Next Level Guy. Again, that's NEXTLEVELGUY, all is one word, the discount code section, and you'll get 10% off all your orders there. This clothes are designed to show off your muscles. They're specially designed so they fit tightly in the right places, and they show off your hard won gains in the gym. So and you will get a lot of compliments. So again, use Next Level Guy at the discount code section there, and you'll get 10% off your orders there. I could go on for another 20 minutes with some of the amazing deals. There's so many great offers from My Protein, Under Armour, The Protein Works, Bulletproof Coffee, MeUndies, the Gains Box, Dollar Shave Club, and so many more. There's something there for everybody. So for all the special offers, free trials, deals, listener exclusives, etc., please go to www.nextlevelguy.com/affiliates. You'll find it in the top menu bar, and also take 2 minutes, sign up to my newsletter as well. I don't spam email out, but you'll get notifications straight away when new posts come out, and you'll also get some listener exclusives which will never be published on the blog. Now let's get to the interview. This one's quite long, but it's an awesome interview. I really hope you get as much fun and knowledge listening to this one as I did during the interview. I hope to have him on again, and this one is now one of my favourite interviews I've ever done. Enjoy.
What's up, brother?
I'm doing great, Nick. How's things?
Good, man. Everything's really good.
You feeling better after the walk?
Yeah, man. It's funny because I thought that like I said, the conversion times or whatever got mixed up. So I thought I was behind schedule, and so I ate my food, and then usually I go for a walk after eating, and out in the back, and so I was kind of one second here. I thought I was running behind, and so I was like, the walks are always good. I don't know if you do them much, but they're always good after like eating a meal or something like that. Just go for a quick walk, kind of helps get the blood flow, and seems to help out with digestion a bit.
Because have you ever heard of Stan Efferding? He's a powerlifter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm familiar with him.
He does the 10-minute walks as well, and he says it's one of the best things he's ever done.
Yeah, it's funny because me and a friend of mine, Brent, he was a fighter. He fought in Bellator and stuff like that. And I remember that we kind of started doing it years ago. It was just something like, I don't know if he had read something or whatever, but when we would go to fights, in Bellator, where you're basically in a hotel, you don't have a lot to do. After we were done eating, we would just go walk around town for, a little bit. And I remember noticing that my stomach usually felt pretty good from it. And so, something I try to keep doing. And then I remember seeing Stan's stuff because I watched Mark Bell's stuff, and then Stan popped up there, and I read through his stuff. And it's good. Shares a lot of good information. And so it only sort of drove that idea home. I used to walk normally just like one day, at least once a day. and then his was more the 10-minute walks. And so now I try to, okay, I'll try the shorter duration, but just more frequency, the walks, and it seems to be good.
Have you seen the interview I did with Stan?
I have not yet.
He's a really interesting guy, and he's really deep, and he's very philosophical, and you just can't help but follow and listen to him, and he's an awesome guy.
He seems like, from everything that I've watched, he seems like a very intelligent dude, with a lot of information to share.
I love your videos. I've been a major fan for years, and every time I ask somebody, I trained at Gracie Barra. I've been there for about 8 months now, and every single time, you're having a bit of trouble with a technique, somebody says, check out Chewy.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
So you've definitely got a massive fan base there, and one of my mates is determined he's delighted I'm interviewing you.
How's your training going, by the way? I remember when you first sort of proposed the idea of the podcast, you said you'd been training for a little bit. How's all that going?
Yeah, it's going well. I mean, the problem I'm finding with it's Gracie Barra, which is it's a good place, great club and that, but they're kind of, I don't know, it's industrialized.
Kind of like it's like a franchise type thing.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like when I watch your videos, it's more of a kind of, you evolve and you change, and I know it's like you feel like a club, whereas ours, it's more this is a curriculum, stick to that. And at the moment, a few of the guys are leaving because they're just not getting that kind of, I've mastered that, now what? Or we learned that version of the back escape, but what do we do in this situation? Oh no, we're just going back and going over and over that. So.
Oh yeah. So I mean, eventually you kind of want to spice things up a little. Plus, with the way that techniques are developing these days, it's like it's like weaponry. Things are just proliferating. It's so much faster now, to where like the techniques change. Like, back in the day, the pace of the technical change changed so slowly. It didn't happen like it does now. Now, man, it seems like every year there's like someone's doing some new stuff, and everybody's like, what is he doing? And they break that down, and then the next year it's something else, some new position, or a position that maybe has been around for a long time, but maybe they've got a new weapon from it. And so it's like, man, you can't help but, like, if you're a jiu-jitsu geek, you can, like, I want to go play with those weapons. I want to try to, like, dissect that stuff down and work with it a bit, So I could definitely see that being kind of a problem,
Well, I went in and, we were learning, like, the lasso guard, the, spider guard, and it was like, oh, this is all new and it's amazing. And then you started watching, like, they were showing us how to get, like, guard passes and how to, like, throws and sweeps and all that. And then you suddenly realize a lot of the ways past most of the guards are the same way. You've just got a slightly different starting point. It's when you break it down very basic, you kind of go, oh, right, it's nowhere near as complicated as you thought it was. Like when you learn the concepts rather than the techniques. Sure,
because I mean the basic concept is you have four. Typically I think of it as controlling 4 points in the body. When you're talking about the guard, you have your hips, right, two sides of the hips. You have the knees and the lower part of the legs. So you got those 4 points. And to me, it's like, if you want to have a really nasty guard pass, control at least 3 out of the 4. You can get by with 2. But if you can control like 3 out of the 4, like a lot of times if you look at passes, it's somehow to pin those parts of the body down and then work your way up to the upper body. But if you can pin all that stuff down, then it's going to be easy to pass the guard, because I mean that's essentially the guard is just the legs and the hips, right? So.
Well, I mean, I got to a point where I was kind of just going, okay, whatever I was facing in jiu-jitsu training, I would go away and look at yourself, the grappling academy. I would kind of find something that I go, okay, what do you guys recommend to do? And then I go back into class. Like we were learning A, D, F, but we weren't learning how to go from B to C to build into that situation.
I mean, and no gym is perfect. I mean, even for me, it's like, I mean, I'm sure that, if someone was to train with just like you, if you were to come here and train with me, there'd be some things where you'd like, well, the last gym did this really well, and I like this thing that you do, but I kind of like this too. So I mean, there's so many different variations, to it, and the way that you teach it. I mean, so I mean, I don't know. So every gym's going to have its pros and cons and different facets about the way that the person teaches that'll be beneficial to others and maybe not so beneficial to others.
Well, I mean, that was going to be one of the questions I asked, was like, how do you pick a good gym? We have maybe 4 in Glasgow that you could base it on, and depending on the nature of what you want, there's the sort of one that's based for the MMA kind of guys. There's ones for the fitness guys, and there's ones for the in-betweens. How does somebody new to jiu-jitsu pick a decent gym, a decent coach?
For you, for instance, how do you pick a gym? So what do you think if we were to sort of nail down a very particular attribute, like, or something the person's going to have to do, like, what's going to be the most important thing for the person's long-term success in jiu-jitsu? Like, what would you think that is?
For me, it's just consistency. It's
right.
somewhere that you can go routinely.
Right. Long-term consistency is by far the most important thing. You can have the most intense training. You could have the best black belts, the best training partners, whatever. But if you're not training consistently for a long period of time, you're simply just not going to get much out of it. And so to me, the biggest thing is finding a place that you feel like you mesh with, finding a place where you feel like you can go to and like this is your place. And that's going to be different for everybody, right? Like, some people want different things. And so you got to go to these different gyms and find the place where when you walk in, it's like, yeah, this feels good. Because you go in and you feel like, yeah, this is good. I've had people that have come into my gym from other gyms, and they didn't like it. They didn't like the other gyms they went to. They felt like something was just off. They came into my gym and they loved it. They're like, man, this just feels perfect. This is what I wanted, right? And then I've had people come in and they weren't getting something that they wanted in particular. They were like, well, I wanted to do more of this, and you guys don't really do this as much. So I'm going to go to this gym, and this one feels right. So you got to kind of go to the gym that when you go into it, it feels right. Now, obviously, that's going to be different for everybody, and you want to make sure you do your due diligence to make sure that you're going to a legit gym. But assuming that everything's on the up and up, you find the personality, the way that the gyms run, the community of people is going to be super important because, you could have the best coach, but if you have a bunch of jerks on the mat, those are the people you're going to be training with day to day. So, which usually follows the coach. So most people, if you got a good coach, people are going to be awesome people. But find those people, find the place where the community feels good, the teaching's good, and everything just kind of feels like it fits in place, and then just run with it.
Because I think you kind of know, like after you learn the technique, if the first thing they say is, okay, let's start rolling, you think, okay, there might be, why not do a few more live drills or a beginner section? Because sometimes you just get guys thrown in against, purple belts who just annihilate people, and you don't learn anything from it, and then you just stop going because you think, well, why am I bothering? We've definitely got a good squad of guys in my current gym, guys who are willing to teach and take their time. Because I do the advanced class now as well as the fundamentals, and you realize how nice people are in the fundamentals class. As soon as you get leg locks and submissions allowed, yeah, things change. You get battered quite a bit.
But yeah, like the same thing with our like beginner and advanced classes, like our beginner classes, fundamentals classes. Let's say if we're working on closed guard or something, and we'll have a mixture of people in there from the highest level people in the gym to like the lowest level, and the guys that are at the highest level, they play down, they play at scale with the people that are learning to help them out, because it's kind of the whole focus of the gym is you go out and you become better, and then afterwards you turn back around and help the people that are under you along. And then people have said the same thing. They're like, man, I went to the advanced class where then they're kind of opening up a little bit, and they're like, he's so nice to me in the fundamentals class. He's like letting me try stuff and help me out. And then in the advanced class, like I can't do anything, and it's good to kind of have that contrast, because you're like, okay, they're being nice to me, they're helping me out, but at the same time, man, I've got a hell of a long way to go. And some people maybe look at that discouragingly, but to me, like, I always got motivated. Like whenever I would like see someone so far ahead of me, but to know it's possible, because you can look at someone and like they did it. I'm like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. So I'm going to find a way. I'm just going to grind and make that happen.
Well, that's why I find so much fun of it, is like I'm a 3-tab white belt at the moment. And when I roll now with somebody new, I'll stop and go, okay, like we should be doing this, but I'll show you a quick thing of how to break that guard, or
sure.
This is something they struggle with, where then I'll go and maybe tap a blue belt in the advanced class and then get annihilated by another white belt. It's like a human chess match, and sometimes you're on, sometimes you're off. Your counters are maybe not as effective, or you're tired, and there's always something to work on and something to evolve, and it's an amazing sport, but it gets so annoying after a while when you think, oh, I've just learned the 10 defenses against that approach. Now I've suddenly got to deal with this submission and the variations that come off it. I don't think you can ever fully learn it. I mean, as a black belt, are you still learning things every day?
All the time. It's funny because I was going through my little post-meal walk just now, and I just came up with a couple of new drills. Again, I'm sure someone's done them before, but they're new to me. And so I came up with a couple of new drills to share with the guys. The other day, I was doing some drill work on Tuesday, and so I came up with these drills, and then so I'm going to share them with the guys. We did them this morning, and the guys were like sweating hard afterwards. And so we're going to do them tonight. And I was thinking about, I was like, man, like, there's so much. It's like I'm always getting something new, and it's sometimes it's I'm learning something because I'm watching or there's someone else do it or breaking down a match, and sometimes it's like it's kind of like music, right? You mimic other people's music if you're a musician, right, for years and years, and you play their music and you learn how to do chords and all that other stuff, and then eventually you make your own music. And so at this point, it's coming to the point where I can watch other people's stuff, I can break down other people's moves and techniques, or even watching people's instructional videos sometimes to get little tips and things like that, and where they went down a rabbit hole or a seminar. I learned lots from seminars, but also like I can make my own stuff now, and then I can basically I have a deep enough understanding of the principles where now I can just play around with stuff and like find my own stuff and sort of make my own music, so to speak. So I'm learning both from other people, but also from my own like experiences and my own training. You get good enough to where you can start to like go down the rabbit hole and explore a little bit on your own.
And where do you think that creativity comes from? Have you always been like that? Like, as a kid, where you always try, invent your own games and stuff? Or is it just like your love for jiu-jitsu now is the point where you just want to keep pushing yourself and seeing what you can do? Or do you get bored easy, or,
I don't know. I as a kid, I was always doing something, right? Like I was always trying to like, there was some creativity in me. Like, there was something where I had an urge when I was a kid to like create stuff, whether it would be like, me and friends would make comic books as a kid, or I would like, I remember like making my first little, you want to make a joke about it, but like my first little business, right? So, I started like selling stuff, and started doing, different odds and ends to make money, and, I got the idea. I was watching TV or something and got an idea to do it. So I've always had like some sort of drive to create something. But as far as the jiu-jitsu is concerned, man, I think that it just happens as a byproduct. If you get into it and you really get into it, right, you obsess over it, then you can't help but start to just play around. And one of the things that happens is when you can start to sort of soften yourself a bit with it, because people in the beginning, a lot of times we have to do it. We have to go out and conquer. We have to go out and prove, right? You have to go out and prove yourself a little bit. It's not to be like in a negative way. It's not that you're being like you have an unhealthy ego or something like that, but you have to go out and you have to prove to yourself that you can do something. But eventually, once you realize that you were good enough to do it, then you can relax a little bit. And it's when you have that relaxing point that you can really start to play around with like no pressure. And when that happens, when you can just screw around and try stuff, make mistakes and just tinker with things, that's where you really start to be able to create stuff, because you can just like try different things without having any sort of like, well, I don't know if this is going to work. Right. Well, it doesn't matter if it works, because it's not necessarily the point. It's you try something out. It's like someone inventing something. Right. They fail a million times before they actually make the thing that they were trying to invent. Right. So you might try to move your body in a number of different ways and none of it works. And then one day, boom, you've got this new technique or this new movement that's unique to you in some degree. And now you have something to work with. And so but it only happens typically after you can kind of like relax a bit. That was a ramble. I don't know where really I went with that, but hopefully that made sense.
No. These are the kind of interviews that I like, whereas like I normally start off with like, who are you, what was your upbringing and stuff like that, but I actually like these where they kind of just flow into, and we answer like maybe a question from this topic, a question from that topic, and that's the
more of a conversation.
Yeah, it's because I hate these ones where it's just they're so scheduled and you just sit and listen and go, you could just change the name at the top. I mean, so what kind of things did you sell as a kid? Were you like, was it just wheeling and dealing, or was it like comic books to friends, that sort of thing?
All kinds of random stuff. So we did the comic book thing for a little bit. I'd go buy comic books and then I would try to like, sell them sometimes. I remember one of my favorite stories. So where I used to live with my grandfather for a time when I was younger, when my mother was she was battling alcoholism. And so there was a period where me and my family was split up to a certain degree. And so I lived with my grandpa for a number of years, and I still had a great relationship with my mother as she was getting things together, but it's a long story. Anyway, but with my grandfather, I remember I would always come up with him with some little scheme or something. And I remember I was a kid. I must have watched something on TV to get the idea. And so where my grandfather lived, he was very close to Churchill Downs. So if you guys are familiar with like the the Churchill Downs race, right? Like the Kentucky Derby, right? That's pretty popular around the world, right? Well, so we lived a couple blocks down from that thing at the time. And so you would have these cars just in these long lines of traffic jams where they're just stuck sitting there. And so I remember watching a TV show, and there was something happened, and then I went up to my grandfather and I said, Grandpa, can I get a loan? And his face when he looked at me, like, a loan, like, what do you need a loan for? Like, why would this, like, I want to say I was like 7 or something. Why does a 7-year-old want a loan? And I told him what I was going to do, and I was going to basically go buy hot dogs, like, and food and hamburgers and things like this, and I'm going to sell them to people that are sitting out there in these lines. And he's like, well, who's going to grill them? And then I kind of like looked bashfully at him, like, well, can you grill them for me? And so he kind of laughed. So we went and bought the hamburgers and the hot dogs and stuff with the loan of however much money it was. And obviously he didn't make me pay it back to him, but we went out there and I was just like running and hustling these little hot dogs and hamburgers and stuff up and down the street to people. And the police officer came up to me at some point, because you had a lot of walking people in traffic just walking. And he comes up to me. He's like, son. He's like, yes, sir. He's speaking to me in a nice stern tone, so I'm kind of nervous. And he says, do you have a license to sell this, like a food license? And I was like, no, sir. And then he said, well, if you let me buy a hamburger, we'll call it even. And I was like, oh, yes, sir. Like, there you go. But that was kind of that. And then as a kid, I grew up poor, so like I was always looking for something as far as how to make some money, because I just didn't have it. It wasn't there. So it would be everything from cutting grass, raking leaves, to, like I said, selling like that kind of stuff, parking cars like at the Derby, or selling comic books, just whatever I could think of. You know what I mean? Like some way to make a little extra cash. So there's always little things like that.
And do you think that's why you became your own boss? Did you always want to run your own thing, or did it just slowly evolve? Did this come from back in those days, do you think?
Maybe a little bit, but I don't think that that's the reason. I think that I was, one part is, just sheer luck. I mean, there is some luck to it, the right place, right time. And I don't mean luck in like as in like something just happened, right? It's like you make your own luck, but there is a degree of luck to it. I was in the right place, right time, born at the right time, right year, and I was surrounded by the right people. And so, there's a little bit of that to it, and things sort of progressed. I'm sure that there's probably some natural tendency that I have towards it, but I don't think that was mainly. It wasn't like I was, from the moment that I woke up and when I was a young kid, that I knew I was going to be my own boss. It was more of like, there was an opportunity, I seized it, and I just went after it, and things worked out okay for me.
And I love stories like that, where you can see that kind of family bond, and the inspiration and the role models that kids had at that age, and how it helps them grow and develop. And did you look to your grandfather as like the inspiration and a role model to you at that age?
It was weird. So I wasn't particularly close to my father, right? My father just, wasn't, my mom and my father split, before I was even born. So, I mean, I just didn't really see him very much. And I didn't really see him much until I was getting close to my, like 8 years old and 7 years old and on. I didn't really see him very often up until then. And then even then I didn't see him very often. And so, there's this yearning, I think, that every man has, that when you're growing up, like, as a boy, like you want to look to other guys and say, what does it mean to be a man? You do this unknowingly, right? You don't know that you're doing it, but you're doing it. And so as a young guy, like I had like these different men in my life that were like my grandfather. My uncle was another one. One of my friends' dads was one of them. And I've had people like this throughout through my young years, my 20s and everything else, where I would somehow attract these people in, even after it wasn't a family thing. But my grandfather as a guy was basically just one of those things where, as a young kid, he was a good model for me as what it is to be a man. And that's like, you work your ass off, you grind to do whatever it is that you got to do. I mean, he was like he served 3 tours in Vietnam. He had a scar going from his like neck down to his stomach, and where he would like, and he has a crazy story to go with it. And he, took care of the family, and he did whatever he could to support his wife and everything else. And so for me looking at that, I was like, okay, that's what you do. As a man, it may not be easy. It may not be fun all the time, but you just grit your teeth and you just do the damn thing. And that, you just have to do it. And so for me, he was very helpful in that sense.
And do you think that's why you kind of sort of move towards martial arts, because of that team dynamic, like developing the masculinity, being a part of a group and that sort of thing? Or
Well, I think that, originally I got into sports because I wanted to. Well, first off, so I got jumped when I was in seventh grade. And some people that watch the channel may know the story. But basically, I was beat up. I was walking home from school. I'm in seventh grade at the time, and I was beaten up to the point where I was like, my nose was broken. And these guys were like 16 and 18 years old. So it's like I'm a kid, and they're damn near adults. They were adults in some sense. And, they beat the shit out of this kid. And so after that, I went from being this very like outgoing, very extroverted young guy to being very introverted because I was so like, I don't know, man, it just zapped any sort of confidence that I had in myself. And I couldn't even go outside and go for a walk like anymore. I was like, I didn't even want to go outside out of the house because it happened right out in front of our house again, because we didn't live in a good area at the time. And so I didn't even want to go outside. And, it was sports started off. Weightlifting was where I started because I started lifting weights with one of my friend's dads. He saw that I wanted to do it, and he had a weight set down in his basement, so we'd go lift weights together. After I started lifting weights, I somehow ended up on the football team in high school. And after the football team, my sophomore year, a bunch of the I remember I'd sign up for wrestling to try it my freshman year, but I was too chicken shit to do it. And then the next year, a bunch of the football guys, the guys I was playing football with, they said, "Hey man, like we do wrestling in the off season. Come do it with us." I'm like, okay. And I tried it out, and I didn't know what it was at first, but later on I would come to realize what it was. But basically, wrestling just stuck for me. It stuck for me. And it helped me sort of take power back and gain confidence in who I was again, and feel powerful and feel like, and basically realize, there's something more in me than I think sometimes. And so as I got older, that was something I had to have it. And then jiu-jitsu represented just a way of doing that. And so there's a multitude of reasons, but one of them was to, again, take back my own power of who I am rather than let someone else dictate it, from when I was in seventh grade. And that was kind of what led me down this whole mixed martial arts and fighting and grappling and all that other stuff.
No, I mean, now you completely related. I was actually just thinking there about my own personal kind of like, I was pretty badly bullied in primary school, and even to this day, I still have pretty, if I think back to it, I can feel that old emotion and that struggle.
Sure.
And I think it's that thing into it that you lose who you are. You kind of go introverted. You struggle to have the confidence, like you're saying, you don't want to go outside in case you meet, because I lived in a small village,
Sure.
So you'd probably see these kids again. Mm-hmm. And I think now it's like jiu-jitsu kind of gives you that confidence back. I really wish I had. Like I grew up in the Highlands, so it was very difficult for me to have these kind of classes, but they're slowly becoming more and more involved. So, do you think every guy should take it? I mean, is there anybody that's not suited to be? Why do you think guys should do jiu-jitsu?
So, I mean, it depends, right? Like, I mean, I think every person should go into something where they have to struggle, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean even physically. It could be something like, and I mean, physically is in like a really tough, like physical sport, like jiu-jitsu, wrestling, or football, or whatever it might be. But I think it's so important for everyone to do something where the story that you tell yourself gets disrupted, right? And I think that for you and I both, right, we both got picked on, and I know for me, I was a chubby kid, man, and I had this story of who I thought I was, right? I was a fat, chubby kid. I was always going to be fat. Girls didn't like me. I wasn't tough. I was a wimp, whatever, all these just negative things. And then when you do something where you're forced to basically just disrupt that story and break that apart, it changes things. Because again, the ego, our ego is that the story, the construction of who we think we are, right? And you have to do something that kind of breaks that up a bit. And I think that jiu-jitsu represents a good way of doing that. It says, hey, like you come in thinking something, and then over time you break that up. You were talking about when you first got on the mat, obviously you had no idea what you're doing, and you're just trying to survive. And you're like, God, man, I suck at this thing. But you keep doing it anyway, and you break through that, and eventually you'll be one of the purple belts or brown belts or black belts, and then you're going to be one of the guys that's like, oh my God, I'm one day you'll wake up and realize, oh, I'm pretty good at this stuff, and it changes things. And and who we are is very malleable. We can change. And I think that's an important lesson to learn. You can get that from jiu-jitsu, but you can get that from tons of other stuff, music or whatever sort of thing you want to get into. But I think it's an important thing to do. I think that the physicality of jiu-jitsu is important because I think that physical confidence has a way of spilling out over into every aspect of your life, especially as a guy, right? As men, we want to be physically confident in ourselves. We want to know that, like, man, if some guy comes up to me and gets face to face, I can take care of myself. And I think that physical, physical martial arts like jiu-jitsu, judo, boxing, kickboxing, all these different things are super important for that, because you're forced to, on a day-to-day basis, roll and spar with each other, and you learn that physical confidence, and it's not misplaced, it's not fake, because you had to actually go in and do something to obtain it. You had to go roll with people. You had to prove to yourself on a daily basis that you are what you might think you are. You're better, and sometimes you're better than what you think you are, right? And so I think that's important. So I think I answered your question.
I mean, so I remember one guy I interviewed, and he went off for about 30 minutes, and he came back and went, "What was the question?" It's I think that there's a lot to, like, what you're saying about the ego and that as well, because you get guys who come in and they're big and they're strong and they're, I'm going to smash everybody, and then they get armbarred by the smallest girl in the room, and you think, yeah, you've kind of got to learn about that one. Is that the hardest thing, do you think, for most people, is just dropping that ego and just going, okay, I'm actually going to be the half empty cup. I'm going to learn. I'm going to be fluid. I'm going to forget everything. How do you drop that? Because I remember you saying that you struggled with your ego when you were younger. So how do you accept it and just forget the stories and just be open and learn and not judge yourself? And
yeah. Well, the first thing is because we hear this a lot in jiu-jitsu. They say, "Oh man, lose your ego. Don't have an ego." Or someone will tell me, "Oh, I don't have an ego." When someone says that they don't have an ego, to me that sounds like the ego talking, right? Because it's like, okay, you don't have one. Like we all have one. Like regardless of whether you want, it's just you don't want to let the slave be the master, right? The ego is a tool that we use because it makes things easy. You can break apart who you are, right? Like your name's Ian, and you do this thing, and you run this podcast. I mean, you're so much more than that, but that's the kind of the story you tell yourself. And so the ego, it's useful. You just can't control you. The problem with me when you talk about my ego, like when you're talking about dropping it, I had so much insecurity, man. Like I was coming in a situation where, again, I was jumped in 7th grade. When I started jiu-jitsu, I was, 18 years old. I was not out from under that, right? And as in wrestling, I was getting confidence, but the confidence was always placed on how well I did that training session or that tournament. And so if I did poorly, I was back to feeling depressed, and I was back to feeling like I was worthless. And so I had to go out and constantly prove it. And when I was in jiu-jitsu, it was the same way, man. If I went to the session and had a bad session, I'd feel so down on myself, like as if I sucked. And then the next training session was good, great, but that ego came from insecurity. And as I got more comfortable in my own skin and was just comfortable with myself and what I was capable of, I began to, have a healthier ego, something where it wasn't getting in the way anymore. And as far as most people, when they come in, some people don't have that problem. Like I was talking to one of my guys this morning. He just got his blue belt. He had no ego when he came in. He came in and he still rolls hard. He still goes after it, but he has no ego. You'll submit him. He gets up and does it again. And then you'll have some guys, and this is pretty typical with like big, strong people, because their story is in their head. Man, I'm the biggest, strongest guy in my group of friends. I'm the toughest dude, whatever it is. And then you go in and you wrestle with like a 130-pound woman or male or whatever, and they whoop your ass. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, that story is not true anymore. And what do I do? And that's where you get the body tensing up, and the ego starts to like kind of come alive and gets angry at you. And as far as dropping it, the only thing you can do is basically let it be beaten out of you. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how it happened for me over time. It was just every day I would come to a session, it just slowly got beaten out of me. Every time I got submitted, every time I got smashed, every time I had to like come face to face with my own like deficiencies and keep grinding away to improve, and at the same time seeing myself improve, you just come to grips with it, that it's just something that's not very helpful, but you just have to make sure it's helpful. It's in a healthy manner. But if you have that really nasty ego that says you can't lose, it says you can't make mistakes, then you're having a problem. But there's no easy way to drop it. It's something that you actually have to go through. It's a struggle to get rid of it if you have it.
So, I mean, do you think that, because that's what I was going to say, do you think that's the only way to do it, is just to go consistently and be open? Because something I'm struggling with just now is I'm at that point of I'm either dominating or I'm either getting smashed by some of like the purple belts, but then I'm maybe really pushing some of the purple belts, but then the brown belt is like a complete, I know he's miles more advanced, but it's like you're saying, it's like 1 minute I can have a bad session, that's the end of the world. I'm thinking, why am I bothering? And then the next session I can have is amazing and everything's changed again, everything's rosy. Is it just a case of just keep going and gradually being open and flexible and finding out more about yourself? Do you think, it's like you're saying, just kind of
don't
break down the walls?
Don't be personally attached to the outcome. right? Like, so if you're doing something, just don't be personally attached to it, because the problem is that, like, again, part of the ego, right? If you were to describe yourself to someone, it goes through this whole thing of like what you do, maybe what you've done, everything else, right? And so you become attached to the things that you've done, right? Like, is some, like, you talk to someone and they're like, oh, like, as they start to describe themselves to you, they instantly go to like, I do this job and I built this business, or I did this, that, whatever. And you become attached to that stuff. And so when things aren't going well, then that personal attachment that you have to it starts to suffer. So you have to like do it, but you can't be personally, you got to go after it as hard as possible. You got to try to be the best that you can possibly be. But when it doesn't go your way, sometimes you just can't be personally attached to it, because it's just par for the course. And again, that's just the way it is. And there's no easy way to do that. Each one of us deals with that in a certain way. And so you have to just be open to it and just continue to get up and do it again. Just like, you've interviewed a lot of amazing people on your podcast, and I'm sure a lot of those people had so many failures in everything that they did. And that's part of it. Right. And so no one gets to where they want to be. Nobody. And here's another thing. You can get to where you think you want to be. And then when you get there, you realize it's not enough. Right? Because it's never going to be enough. You're always going to want to be better. You're always going to want more. It's never going to be like, oh man, I got this one thing, or this one technique, or I got this black belt, or I made this much money. I'm good. I'm done. It's going to be like, I want more now. And as far as rolling with people, like having those days where you get smashed, be excited about that, man. Like, I love that. Like when I was coming up, man, like when I would go into a place, like I remember walking into my gym the very first day and getting my face meshed. I was excited about it because I was like, these guys are good. Right. And I want to be good. So I'm going to roll with these people. And even now, like when I go to a place and I roll with people, I'm like, man, these guys are good. And they push me. That's fantastic. Like I just went to a big camp where I was rolling with a bunch of black belts there that day. And like, man, some of these dudes are good. Like I was struggling. I was like, this is awesome. Like I told them, I was like, we're going to have to set up a training session because they're not too far away. And I'm going to bring some of my guys down there so we can all train and push each other a little bit. Because that's the best. Because if you know that someone's that good, you can just follow it. You can say, look, this person's this good. Great. And they trained at this gym like you maybe you're rolling with a brown belt. Good. He's whooping your butt all over the place. Perfect. I can chase this guy because if he got this good, I can get this good too. I just got to keep, doing the same thing he did, which is just show up.
So how do you get that into your guys' heads? How did you teach that to yourself? The ability to just go into each role with, okay, let's see what happens here. No, right, okay, get excited by failure and make mistakes rather than compare yourself to somebody and going off in a huff because they've beaten you. How do we overcome that immaturity side of things?
That's a tough question, man. And again, that goes back to the ego, right? Like being attached to it. See, when I would get beat by people that were better than me or that were higher ranked than me, it didn't bother me that much. I'd be like, all right, they were supposed to beat me. The problems happened when, like, let's say that you and I rolled and you were a 2-stripe white belt, I'm a 2-stripe white belt, and you beat me. And let's say that I beat you the day before. I'd be like, what the hell happened? How did you beat me today? I was supposed to always beat you, because that's the way, I now beat you. So therefore I'm supposed to always do it. As far as how to get over that, man, like, it's no different than how you would get over anything that's, that's being sort of like fueled by that negative sort of, association. You just have to keep going in there doing it, because once you don't become personally attached to the outcome, that's when you can do it. And here's a good thing. I've done this before with some of the guys. I've had them do drills where basically I put them in a position, right, where I say, listen, your job is to just simply don't try to get submitted. And I'll share where I'm going with this in a second. So we'll do this drill where basically the person who's, trying to submit them, okay, they'll start from either side control mount or back mount. So they get dominant position on them right off the bat. The person that's in the position, who's on the defensive side, they cannot escape the position. Their goal is to just try to stay tight and don't get submitted. Just do your best. Now, what ends up happening is they get two good things out of this. One is that they learn how to be very defensive without escaping, which is beneficial because you get very comfortable being in those nasty positions if you know that you can't escape. So all you can do is focus on keeping your arms tight and not give up openings for the person to use. So that's one. You get it's a very big benefit to that. Second thing is that you learn that if you get submitted, it's okay. Right. And the reason I came to this drill was back in the day, I was injured. I had a little knee injury, so I really couldn't drive off my leg. And so a lot of your escapes from side control and stuff like that are going to come when you drive the hips up and you move. Couldn't do it. So I was like, okay. And this is still back when I was like really still kind of like young and still really attached to being good and all that stuff. And I remember just laying down on my back and I'm like, well, I can't really escape. So let me see how long I can just hold out. Right. And the guys would, eventually a lot of them were catching me. And I did this for like a week and a half, 2 weeks or something like that while my knee was healing up. But what was neat is I basically had this feeling of like there was a lot of resistance to getting submitted at first. And then eventually I learned to just relax from it. I was like, huh. And then when I went back to regular rolling, my defense from these different positions was so much better. But also it was one of those things where I kind of lost a little bit of that like I can't be submitted kind of thing, because you realize it just doesn't fucking matter, so you get submitted. So what? Slap hands, do it again. It's a video game. It's literally a game. Press a reset button, do it again. And for me, that helped out a lot when I was younger, that little drill. And again, just completely just fell upon it just because I had to because of a knee injury, but it was helpful.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I like doing with a lot of the roles now is like I'll say to the guy, like, is there somewhere that you want to work on? Do you want to go from a certain position? And a lot of times I was struggling from side when somebody was on top and side control. I couldn't. Nobody had showed me how to escape, so I started putting myself into that with somebody bigger. Because I always go for the bigger, the nastier ones in a row, because I want if I'm either going to get beaten and learn, or I'm going to hold my own, or I don't see the point of going in and being one of those guys that throws their weight around and
smart.
Tries to hurt other people, because you see them in every club, unfortunately. So, I mean, do you think those are the kind of things like that make a good person, a good student? What do you look for as a good student? Is it somebody that comes in open, willing to make mistakes, and just thinks, yeah, I'm just going to go for it and learn, or what's your ideal student?
I mean, there's some different types of students that come in. Usually I can almost tell you the ones that are going to fizzle out and the ones that are going to stick around. Like there's some guys that come in and I call them shooting stars. They come in, they talk all the time about jiu-jitsu. They're taking Instagram posts and Facebook posts. They buy 20 gis from BJJHQ right off the bat. And then, they're getting ready for their first tournament, and then they fizzle out. It's just too intense. Most of the guys that I see that do really well are the guys that just come in and they just train. Like like the guy that got his blue belt this morning. He's a guy who's just been training, man. He doesn't come in. He doesn't talk about it all the time, like on Facebook or anything. He comes in, he loves it. He's just kind of quiet and comes in and grinds. It's like it's just this thing that he does. He enjoys doing it, and he found a reason intrinsically that he wants to do it. And so I think for anyone that like really wants to be a good student, obviously, if you're one of those guys throwing your weight around or whatever, that's a terrible idea to do it, because obviously if I see someone like that, I'll purposely make sure to have them go up against the toughest guys, right? Like, so if I see some big guys kind of throwing his weight around a little bit, I'll purposely put him with the toughest dudes afterwards. So this way he knows how that feels. And then also so he can, again, get that ego just kind of beaten out a little bit, because again, look, man, like you there's always going to be someone better than you, and one of the best things that you can do is go roll with the people that make you uncomfortable, because if they make you uncomfortable, you're stressing yourself out. It's like being under the barbell, right? You go push yourself a little bit and you get to a weight that kind of makes you uncomfortable, makes the muscles burn, and that's where you get the growth. If you stick to the weights that are nice and easy, then obviously you're not going to have any growth. So it's a great idea to go in there and work with people that are going to push you a little bit, so this way you can improve, because it's going to force you. It rubs off on you a little bit, right? Like when you're surrounded by really good people in anything, whether it be jiu-jitsu or life or whatever, you just kind of get the good stuff that they have to give. It just kind of rubs off on you.
Because that's what I quite like. I mean, I train at Gracie Barra in Glasgow, and the good aspect of that is there's a lot of good guys there who are willing to go balls to the wall with you if you really want to, like a hard roll. But they're also willing to stop and go, okay, let's practice from here. Or, they'll show you a different way of doing things. And there's a lot of great guys there. But there were some guys who kind of pushed the bar a wee bit. They maybe dominated certain people just for the ego side of things, and they were removed. And unfortunately, there is that side of guys who they like to prey on the weaker ones. They use it as an ego booster rather than helping another person, and it's quite a sad kind of state of affairs that there's guys like that.
Well, it's insecurity. That's where that comes from, man. Like, I mean, and to me, ego boosting is kind of a weird thing to say, because to me, what would be far more beneficial to your ego as far as having confidence in yourself is like forcing yourself to go with someone that makes you uncomfortable, and you keep doing it, and then eventually you like do better against them, or you beat them, right? Like, and then you're like, wow, I was better than I thought. Like, if you purposely pick out the people that are weaker than you, you are. you know you're doing it. You know that you're doing it, and you know if you're picking on people like that, and if you're doing that, then deep down you know you're being a bitch, man. Like it is what it is. Like you're not treating someone like you want to be treated, which is always the best way to go about it. And at the same time, you're not pushing yourself to grow, right? You're not trying to make yourself intense. You're just trying to go in there and try to feel good about yourself. But at the end of the day, since you didn't really go for anything, there's nothing really to get out of it, right? That you're going to get far more out of boosting your ego and feeling confident about yourself in a healthy way if you go and do something difficult and then you come out on the other end better for it, rather than just kind of sticking to what's comfortable.
So say somebody's going in to start jiu-jitsu. Now they've maybe got the gi or the club outfit, etc., and they've been to a couple of lessons. What would you advise them to start getting good? Is there any hacks that you've learned to training? Is it literally just time on the mat, or is there a way to like visualization, meditation, watching YouTube videos, private lessons? Is there anything that can speed up the development and the learning for participants?
Sure. So, there's a few things that you could probably do that would be beneficial. Time in position is helpful. So, if you have open mat time, or if if your coach does this already, that's great. A lot of gyms don't do it. But if you have open mat time, or even if you can have the sort of the focus to do it when you're rolling, put yourself in places you want to get better at, right? So, for instance, like you were talking about earlier, you were doing this. I wanted to get better at side control years ago, like side control escapes. It was my worst place to get out of. And at the time, there was a black belt here training with me named Jason, and he was kind of iffy at getting out of back control. Well, my best position is back mount, and his best position was side control, so it worked out great. And we would come in on Sundays, and we would just basically practice escape and submit rounds from those positions over and over and over again for 2 minutes at a pop. And again, just being in the position, things rub off on you. The thing is that a lot of times in jiu-jitsu, your body's going to absorb the information before your mind can articulate what you're doing. And they've done studies on this where the body understands the patterns. And that's really what you're doing a lot of times in jiu-jitsu, is figuring out patterns and movements. And so your body understands those patterns far before the mind can like articulate what's going on. And so you start to do things sort of not even really realizing you're doing it until afterwards. You're like, oh, that thing worked. And I've been doing this a whole bunch. A lot of black belts, that's how they find their moves. They just do stuff, and then they figure out something works, and then they'll kind of come back afterwards and say, okay, come here real quick. I'm doing this thing with my foot, and I don't really know what I'm doing, but it's working. Let me see if I can break it down. And so time and position is really important. Drilling is really important. Just doing the move at a increasingly faster pace, more and more and more. Like, so you go in and you start slow, do your reps real slow to get the move down. You get the feel of it. And then after you get the feel of it, you speed it up to sort of increase the stress and your ability to do it faster. And so this way, when you're rolling, you don't have to have that lag time, that moment where you can see the technique, but then you have to like remember to pull the trigger. What's happening is when you start to drill the technique more and more and more, as soon as your body finds itself in the necessary position, boom, it just executes without thinking about it. Those are two super important things. I think that would be, if you want to get better at jiu-jitsu faster, it's so important. One last thing that someone could probably do, this is something I did as a white belt, and I didn't really realize how beneficial it was until later on. I lived with a guy. He was my best friend, and so he lived with me, and we trained jiu-jitsu together. And so every day we would come in. Obviously, you don't have to do this, live with the person, but if it's possible to carpool or whatever, it's going to be helpful. We would leave the gym, and after we would leave the gym, we would talk about our experience. Like, man, what'd you do tonight? Oh, I did this thing, and this thing didn't work. And we would basically debrief ourselves from that night of training. Now, what was beneficial about this was, one, the drive was kind of long. It was about 45 minutes to an hour. And we would basically talk about our whole entire night about that jiu-jitsu training session that we did. That would leave me with like takeaways where, okay, cool, tomorrow I'm going to try this move, or man, this move worked really well, I'm going to try this thing tomorrow, and so you kind of had some actionable steps to take the next day that you were going to come in there, rather than just saying, man, today was a good day or today was a bad day, and then not really thinking about why it was one of those things, where you can sort of disseminate maybe some ideas or some things that you can do for your the next training session. So those would be 3 things that someone could do if they were going to try to like improve, especially early on.
So as a coach, is that what you're looking for in terms of awarding progression and more belts and stuff like that? Are you looking at each participant to see how they're analysing and evolving and what they're doing? Or, do you just look at the move criteria and see that the skill level's there? Or is it a mixture of the two?
So the way that we do it right now is a bit of a mixture, and I'm still sort of trying to make a good like a good way of doing this without making it too like robotic. And because again, I've talked about this in videos, I don't want to make automatons. The reason I don't like a strict hardcore curriculum is because you make people just, I've gone to gyms before where everybody's on the same curriculum, right? The same thing, everything's the same. And you roll with someone and everyone's the same. You roll with one of them, you roll with all of them. I love having diversity. I like when people, like in my gym every day, like just Tuesday, we had a ton of killers on the mat, and every one of those guys rolls a little differently. Every one of them has a little bit of a different spin. I'll see influences from me, from teaching them so long, but at the same time, they all have their own style. They've interpreted the art, right? Because it's an art. They've went down that artistic sort of expression their own way, and they found the things that worked for their body better than the things that I could have showed them. And so I like to give people a foundation, but then let them explore on their own. That's kind of my goal, is to say, listen, I'm going to give you the guts, the bones of as much as I possibly can, and then from there, I'm going to let you explore it any way you see fit. Like, find things that are going to work for you, and you're going to stick with them. Now, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, you do see that a lot. It's like everybody learns the same maneuver. So when you see them maybe doing the start up, where they maybe pop up onto their elbow, you go, oh, I know what they're doing. Push them back down.
Right.
It's sad, isn't it?
What's that? The similar stuff?
Yeah, it's like you're signposting going, I'm going to do this move because I've just learned it.
Right. And so it's fine in the beginning because you have to do it. You have to teach everybody some similar stuff, right? To give them the guts. But the way that I think about jiu-jitsu is a lot of times it starts off like this. You have, in the beginning, you have variation, right? If I show a particular move to a group of white belts, it's going to look different for every single person because they're all over the place, right? And then everything kind of goes to uniformity. I'll see things kind of look very similar, like, everybody's kind of on the same page, and that's what you're talking about, where, everybody's kind of doing the same thing, and they're doing the same thing because they've absorbed that information. Now, the last part, though, is where if you allow your students to, the beautiful thing is that you get the creativity that comes back in the form of variation again. So that's when you say, well, hey, coach, that move you showed me? Yeah, I remember it. Well, cool. Well, I found this weird grip that I've been using, and it's been working. Here, show it to me. Cool. And then they do it, and I'm like, man, that works really well. And they're like, is this a good grip? And I'm like, well, does it working for you? Like, we'll keep doing it. And then you let them go their own way. So you give them the bones, right? You give them the guts, and then you say, listen, now you go create. Right, because again, the way I'm very up in the clouds at times, and I think of it as an art. So when your job is to eventually, you have to express yourself with your body, right? It's this language with the body, right? Express it in your own way. And that's going to be different than the way that I'm going to do it, because our body types are different. The way that we look is different. The way our mentalities are, everything's going to be different. Go express your own way. And I don't want to be an impediment to that. So as far as the way we promote people, kind of going back to that one question you had, it's a mixture of time. It's a mixture of their attitude. I think that's something super important. It is a martial art, and I think that we should be helping people become better people as best we can. And again, I don't want to be on my high horse telling people how to live their life or anything like that, but if you're like a black belt and you're an asshole to the people around you, you're not a black belt. You would not be a black belt under me. If you wouldn't be a blue belt under me. Like I've had guys before that were skill wise good, and they could submit purple belts sometimes, but until they like get the idea that, look, we're here to benefit everyone, we're all in this together, then I'm not going to promote you to anything. Like, you're going to have to wait until you get the idea. You have to get that first. But that time in, because everybody's going to be a little bit different as far as their skill progression, and so there's a lot of factors that go into it to each belt, but it's a mixture of everything. So I still haven't ironed it out completely myself, but I'm still working on it. So,
well, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Is like it reflects the person as well. If they're going up in a grade, then they're also evolving as a person. And if you don't see that change, then you think, are they really deserving of that? Because I've seen guys not teach like the new white belts moves or anything, because it's almost like, oh, we'll just let them find their own feet. And I know that, yes, some gyms like to see who's going to stay and who's going to go and stuff like that. But I like stopping and kind of, going, okay, let's try this. I'll show you this. Or think about this. And if you put your arm here, this is what will happen later on, once submissions are allowed. So fix that now. And even at the end, like when you're slapping hands, I just always go, good session, well done. Because I know what it's like when you're coming into something new. You want people to stop and say hello to you and just make you feel part of, Because some people, they're just doing it as a hobby. We're not all trying to be mixed martial artists, but I think some guys forget that, but then again, that's probably back to the ego. So how do you teach?
What I was going to say is because you were talking about that, and that was a good point. Like, there's so many people coming in, and I've heard that idea of like, when students come in, screw them. If they're going to stick, they're going to stick. And I think that's such a terrible way to do it, because the way that I've talked to my coaches about this, like you have there's like three big groups, and then people are on a various spectrum of these groups. But I think of students and people when they come in the gym on three different groups. You have like student A, B, and a C. A is going to be the student. It doesn't matter how you break it down. They're never going to stick. They're just not going to do it. Like you could make it the softest thing ever. It's just not for them, right? Then you got student B, man, those dudes, it doesn't matter how you package it. Jiu-jitsu's for them. They're going to enjoy it, right? And a lot of us that got into it back in the day when we were subjected to this basically sink or swim mindset where you just get fucking trashed on the mat the very first day you walk in. That's what we were. We were those people. But there's some people, and I've seen this to be true. There's some, I call them, there's C students, if you will. You can use whatever arbitrary system you want to use. But there's somewhere in the middle of that spectrum. And those are the dudes where you can, depending on your experience that you give them as a coach, you can make them into those students that just want to do it all the time and become obsessed with it. Or you can treat them like crap and they can go the other direction. And then they can become the students that's like, I want nothing to do with this martial art. This stuff sucks. And I've seen people have those bad experiences. I've had people come into my gym that like kind of wanted to try it again, and they said, man, I went to this other gym years ago and I really got turned off to it, but this gym's cool. I like this because I felt like, again, I walked in and it wasn't like that nasty mentality that you had. And the last thing to throw into that idea is like, dude, like to get good at this stuff, someone along the way, I don't care what anybody says, someone had to say, hey man, let me help you out. Right. None of us got better, by just figuring it out on our own. Right. Like we got good because someone said, hey, man, let me help you out a little bit. Right. And that's the whole point. You get good at something. And this is just life, man. You go down the path, whatever it is that you're trying to do this. When you get better at something, when you conquer something, and then you turn back around and you see people trying to do the same thing. They're on the bottom of that hill. And you're like, hey, let me come back down and help you guys up here. I found this path. Follow me. You can follow the path that I'm on. It'll give you some framework to follow, but you might go down this other way your own self. But let me show you how I did it. Right. And to me, that's important. So
how do you train people? Like if they're on, because a lot of guys come in and they don't know anything about having their own game, and some people like to fight from their back, some like to be on side control and stuff like that. How do we can we learn a new choke and technique and all that really quickly, but B, how do we use that and the creativity and figure out our own game and like showcase, like you were saying, like a work of art, like who we are and move our body in a certain way?
Well, I mean, just from a basic teaching principle, the way that we do a lot in the classes, like in the beginning, is that we focus on particular focuses like positional, right? Like we'll say we're working from full guard, we're working from passing the full guard, we're working from side control, whatever the basic positions might be. And then when they roll, they start with just those positions. So we'll do situational rolling for the beginners. We don't let them do full rolls. It's because it's like if it's your first day and I just saw you do a sweep, cool. Well, let me let you try to do the sweep full speed. You're going to go with this purple belt. He's going to go nice and controlled with you, but at least I know that you know what to do. But if I was to say, okay, cool, man, it's your first day, you just started and you learned how to do a scissor sweep, great. Well, we're going to go ahead and start on the feet today and do a full roll. Well, you might break your arm because you post wrong, so it's a terrible idea. So we try to stick people in these situational rolls so they can get the different chunks, right? So they can kind of learn the alphabet of jiu-jitsu, right? So if we want to think of it as language, we learn the alphabet first, like A, B, C, D. We learn how all this stuff works, and then we teach them a little bit how to make words, right? So eventually, you're just learning how to say a word with the alphabet. And then when you go to the advanced class, that's when you put together sentences and paragraphs and you write your novel. But it takes time, right? You have to master the language before you can write something worth reading. And so with the guys, it's one of those things where you can talk about it. Like I can talk about it and people are like, oh, that sounds cool. But it's something that it has to be in your body, right? Like jiu-jitsu is not something that you can simply just talk about. It's something that it has to become a part of you, because it is something very physical, right? This artwork that we're talking about is not artwork of something I use my hand. And even with your hand, right? It's like the artist, they can think about the picture that they want to create, but they simply can't make it yet because maybe they don't have the skill. So they have to develop the skill. And then it's only after years and years of practicing and years of hard labor that they can make what was in their head. And it's the same thing for us. We might have an idea of what we want our game to be like or what we would like to do, but it isn't until we put years and years of practice and go through those struggles that we can really make it, because again, it has to be in the body, not up in the head. And so, yeah.
No, I love that way of looking at it as a language and a way of telling a story and how you learn it. And so do you teach like the concepts to the new beginners? Is it a case of like grip fighting, how to post, how to, like all the main concepts of jiu-jitsu rather than individual techniques, and then gradually you start introducing them to more advanced stuff?
Yes and no. So basically, like when we do the techniques, like let's say, for instance, we're doing a sweep. I'll mention the concepts in, like, for instance, look with a sweep. In most cases with a sweep, you look at the person has typically I consider 5 points of base. You have the head, you have a hand, elbow, you have knees, feet, right? Those are your points of base, right? And they sit typically, are 5 points of your body. Well, to do a good sweep, you need to take away at least 2 of those. Usually you're going to need 3, and you're going to need some sort of off balancing mechanism to make it create some sort of turn or tilt or to pull them off their base. And so there's this whole process that I'll explain to them, and I share that while we're teaching the sweep. I don't like to teach, like I could sit, man, and just talk about my theory in jiu-jitsu, right? And again, I could consider it theory because it's art. We all have a different way of interpreting it. But I could sit around and talk about it all day long, but it doesn't mean anything.
You're more than welcome to come on anytime you want.
But the thing is, it's like you can listen to it, but it doesn't mean anything, because it only means something if you take it and then you embody it. It becomes a part of you, right? Because I can teach them the theory and the concepts, but until you piece them together and you actually use them and put them into practice, that's the only time they make sense. And so when I teach my guys, I say, okay, listen, here's the sweep that we're doing. Now let's just talk about it briefly. What are we doing? We're taking away these points of base. This is the way that we're off balancing the person and creating the tilt with the shoulder. And here's the way that we finish the sweep itself. And so that's the way they understand it, that's going to exist in every single sweep that you do. There's always going to be some way of basically securing the person's posts. There's always going to be a way to off balance the person, to pull that person off of their base. And then there's going to be some mechanism to actually sweep them. And you just can always look for it. The benefit of doing that is that you're combining that concept with the technique. And then it's like, look, take that technique, that concept to any point. And one of my guys came up to me one time and said that helped, because he was rolling with a guy and he was trying to sweep him and he couldn't, right? He felt like he had the move right, but he was trying to sweep the guy during a roll. And he said he noticed that he did not have a good grip on the person's hand, and the person's hand was able to post. So he simply reached down and said, oh, that's right, take the post away. He grabbed the person's wrist, pulled away, and was able to get the sweep. So, again, because we did it with the technique and everything else, because I could talk about all the concepts, but then they never actually get a chance to practice them or use them or sort of see them in action. And then it's not as helpful.
No, I mean, I definitely agree with that, Ben. Something I found was I would do a move and then I'd be like, okay, that wasn't quite right, but it would work for me. And then I found that, because I couldn't maybe do something from the mount, I developed a game of a lot of submissions from the side that a lot of people couldn't cope with, because, I kind of built up that strength, then looked at the weakness, and then I went back and looked at the concepts, and then, it really helped to kind of go, right, so that's where I'm going. And it helped me learn the techniques. It's a really interesting way. I mean, that's what I love about jiu-jitsu. It's like a chess match. It's like you're trying to learn there's so much little things, and there's feints, and there's ways of sucking people in, and it's an amazing sport. So I don't get why a lot more guys don't do it,
Because it's hard. It's not easy, man. Like, it's just as simple as that. People, people like the idea. People like the idea. Oh man, it just seems so cool, But then they come in, and they realize how tough it really is. And, that's when it changes, because it's like, okay, well, do you really want to do this, right? Or do you really have what it takes? Are you willing to just basically just eat shit for a little while and not be very good at something, in the hopes that if you keep training, you will be? And you've got to be able to play that long game, and you got to be able to find something intrinsically in you, something like, inside of your heart that makes you want to get up day to day, take the long drive, have people grabbing all over you, sweating on people, and doing all this stuff, and come in and do it all the time, Because
that's the thing I struggled with when I first started, was we're in a society of personal space. You have your own seat on the bus, you have your own side of the bed, you go into work, you have your cubicle or whatever, and then you go home, seat in the bus, you sit and watch TV. Suddenly you're lying basically on top of somebody as they're trying to choke you out, or they're on your back. It's that suddenly we introduce the physicality and somebody's up in your face and they're trying to hurt you, and then afterwards they shake hands, or they'll say, no, don't choke me there, pull it here, yeah, that'll put me out quicker.
Yeah.
It's a really strange, I don't know, it's strange to adjust to that, and I can understand why a lot of guys kind of go, ooh, you know, like how do you find that transition from competitor to coach, you know, to actually having to do all the like the owner stuff? Is it difficult not to just want to go in and roll 24/7?
Man, so at this point, no, because I've become smarter. Because as I was when I was younger, I used to. When I first started doing this stuff full time in 2010, 2009 was when I started teaching the bulk of the classes, but 2010 was where like this was my full time job. And when I started doing that, man, you couldn't get me off the mat. Like I was teaching morning classes, evening classes, teaching kids, doing private lessons. I counted up some of those days, and I was doing like physical work. I mean, because this is physical labor, man. Like 6 hours a day sometimes, right? Like just either teaching or rolling. And in every class I taught, I was rolling. And then as I got older, my body started to get angry at me and says, "Hey, man, like ease up a bit." And so now I find a little bit. I don't dislike it, right? Because when I'm not training, I can sit back and watch. I can see what people are doing. I can focus all my attention on to the people that are rolling. And then when I roll, it's a good time. I can roll too. So again, I try to, with my training now, it's more of being intelligent about it and training in the right manner. As far as I'm concerned, as far as rolling all the time.
Well, for example, I'm doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes.
Mm-hmm.
So you do a fundamentals class for an hour, then you do an expert class for an hour, and I've also started taking up a private lesson with 3 other guys.
Awesome.
So for me, that's like, wow, that's like with the podcast, doing work and all that. You know, to me, that's like, oh my God, I'm knackered a lot because I'm 35 now.
Yeah.
So, you know, my diet was atrocious. I've must be about 2-3 stone. Something ridiculous, you know.
How much is a stone? I'm over here in America, so
14 pounds or something.
14 pounds. Oh wow, that's a lot of weight.
I've lost a considerable amount of weight.
It's fantastic.
You know? It's maybe not that much, but I mean, I used to do a lot of powerlifting, so my hips were tight.
Yeah.
I couldn't be physical. I didn't like to put weight on people because I was always afraid of hurting them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I've become a lot more confident myself from jiu-jitsu.
Good.
But how do you think, like, somebody who's new to this, what should they also start doing? You know, how can they make sure they're recovering, they're eating right? You know, say somebody's older who wants to take it up, or they've got kids, or they've got a physical job, you know. What kind of habits are good for people to do? You know, what should I be looking to do as maybe like an older person getting into this?
I can only speak from experience and my own thoughts. So some of the things that I do now that have helped me as I'm getting older, and again, I'm not an old guy. I'm 33, so I'm not old by any means, but I've got a lot of mileage on the body, man. So it's a newer model, but there's some pretty hard mileage on it. My body feels better now than it did when I was in my late 20s, because when in my late 20s, like you, I had lifted heavy, did some powerlifting for a bit, did a little strongman from time to time on the weekends, and then I was doing jiu-jitsu. I mean, yeah, I guess it was nice, but it's like it wasn't really productive for jiu-jitsu. It was just because I wanted to be big and strong, right? At one point, I got up to 255 pounds, which is a lot for me. I'm down to 200. I'm right around 210 right now. But so I was lifting heavy weights, training all the time, and I didn't really do anything on the other side of things, right? So I was doing all this hard go stuff, and eventually it caught up to me, and I started to have a lot of issues, knee injuries, and all kinds of nasty stuff. And so some of the things that have been helpful to me, one is to eat a better diet. I've noticed that the inflammation in my joints goes down when I eat a better diet, and basically cutting out sugar, processed bullshit. Not that I ate a ton anyway, but I don't eat any wheat, no breads or anything like that. I keep most of my carbohydrates could come from like fruit, berries, things like that. And I eat healthy meat, just things like that. You eat healthy food, lots of veggies, all that kind of stuff. That's helped out a lot. The way that I feel, the way that I recover, just everything. I think that people abuse caffeine a lot. Like people just down it all the time to stay awake. And I think that's a problem. I think that, if you've got to drink caffeine just to stay awake, you've probably got an issue going on there. You've probably got some vitamin deficiencies. There's probably something wrong with your diet, or maybe you're training too much or something going on, and you should probably back off a little bit. Just be mindful of that, because again, caffeine, I didn't think of it this way, and I had a lot of problems with caffeine, like anxiety and all these other things. Dehydration were caused from too much caffeine, and we don't think of it, but it's a drug. It is what it is. It's a drug. It can be helpful, the right usage. But again, people they abuse it, man, like all the time. So I think going with the diet stuff, that's important. The other things that are helpful are, one, to give your body adequate rest. Being part of the Western culture, rest is like something that everybody sort of seems to frown upon. Like, don't sleep, get up early all the time, like keep going, just kill it. And it's so important, man. If you're going to do jiu-jitsu, people don't think about it this way, but man, you're being athletes. You're trying to treat your body like a performance vehicle, and performance vehicles, like if you've got a race, you're going to have to put that thing in the shop sometimes and do some maintenance on it, and it might take a little bit before you're ready for the next race. And so you need to make sure that you're with your body, you're honoring your body by, when it says, hey man, back off a little bit, I need some time, that you do that. Some other things that are helpful are doing yoga. You can if someone doesn't want to go to the yoga gym, just get online. Just go look up some stuff on YouTube or something. Start with that. But going to a yoga class, doing that stuff's super helpful. Doing some mobility work, just taking some time out, and you got to take some dedicated time. Take an hour, at least a couple times a week, and sit there and just work on different parts of your body. And this is another thing. As you train jiu-jitsu, a lot of times it becomes a catalyst for a lot of other cool things. Like, just like you started to improve your diet because of your training. You're like, man, I want to feel better when I'm on the mat. And so you start improving your diet, because before it was like your diet kind of sucked and you didn't really have any reason to eat better. But now you're like, I want to perform better on the mat. I have a reason now, and you have a strong reason. So that's going to help you lose weight, and your diet will probably improve and get better as you continue to train. It's one of those things where your diet should almost be like a skill in itself, right? You get better at it. You find foods that work better for you. Find foods that are better digesting for you, depending on if you have allergies or something. And then just like that with your mobility work and your stretching and things like that, you'll find certain stretches and exercises and movements seem to help more and more as you get more in touch with your body and sort of learn how it works and become a little bit more intuitive with it. So those would be a couple things I would say would be helpful. Diet, yoga, if someone can do it, and just being mindful of those things.
And you were talking there a lot about like the physicality stuff, the diet stuff and stuff, like, that's something I've really I sort of started addressing. But what about sort of like the mental aspects of it? Do you find you have to switch off? Do you like to read? I know that you've got a partner there. I mean, how do you relax away from this? How do you make sure you get that recovery time? Do you set a date night and stuff like that? Because it must be hard not to want to live in the gym, especially if you run your own place and you have a wealth of talented guys wanting to roll with you.
Oh my God, you have no idea. It was funny. This weekend we had a big 4th of July party, and so we had this big group of guys. We just hung out and everything else, and I didn't get home until late. I usually go to sleep pretty early, and I didn't get home till like 1:30 in the morning, which is really late for me. And so my sleep was all jacked up. And then that barely ever happens. That I've only went to sleep that late one other night this year, and that's when I was at a camp in Wisconsin with some other black belts. Otherwise, I go to sleep really early. And me and my girlfriend got up the next morning, and I was like, God, I want to go train, but I need to take the day off. And it was so hard because I feel almost guilty for not being in here. It's funny, and so for me, it's like, you have to take some time away, because you're more useful to everyone else around you if you take a little bit of time off, and you allow yourself to rest. As far as on the mental side of how to do it, like what do I do personally to sort of take some time away from everything? People probably, like, I don't know what people think about me from watching the videos, but I'm probably one of the most boring people that you've ever met outside of the gym. Inside of the gym is like, I'm extroverted, I'm out there, I'm just I feel alive with everybody else, and I'm just trying to be just excited. I'm having a great time. I use up all that energy inside of the gym, whether it be when I'm training or when I'm seeing someone the first time and I'm trying to give them a great experience, or I'm teaching, whatever it might be. I'm using up this energy out of my body. I'm giving it to everyone else. So when I go home, I don't want to go out and party. I don't want to go do stuff. I want to sit in my chair, and I want to read books. I want to do other things. I want to do other things that I enjoy doing that have nothing to do with physical stuff. And then I lift weights from time to time, but I still consider that gym work. But most of the time I do that kind of stuff. And then my girlfriend and I tend to schedule some date nights together, so I make sure that she gets time in as well, because I don't want it to be something where she has to take a complete backseat to everything, because she's super supportive. And so we will have date nights, and again, when it's date night, okay, like we're just hanging out, it's us two, that kind of stuff. But reading's the big one.
There's definitely nobody scarier to roll with than an annoyed girlfriend. It's like, I think back to my ex. She used to think I just cuddled guys, and then she couldn't understand why I came. She would always ask me like why I came home looking like a bruised banana, because like I have bruises everywhere, and people don't understand it. It looks like you're just kind of holding each other, but there's so much to it. It's so physical, but you can't absorb it. You can get to a point where you're watching YouTube videos, you're thinking about it, you're working out, you're focusing on it when you're at work. So what kind of books are you talking? Do you read fiction? Are you like more a self-improvement kind of guy?
It's different. So I'll read, typically I have a couple books going. Usually one book is going to be on something that, like history. I'm a big history geek, so I like reading history books, or listening to audiobooks. So I'll usually do one of those at a time. And then I'll typically have some other book that I feel like would be beneficial to me in some way. It doesn't necessarily have to be self-improvement. It might be a philosophy book. It might be some sort of skill-based book that like they're teaching some particular type of thing, in that book that I would like to learn. Or maybe it's a book, a biography or something like that of a top performer, someone that I would like, man, I really want to learn about this guy, whatever it might be, some book like that. And then I use, so it's one book typically for fun, which is history most of the time. And then it's one book that I think that I can better myself in what I do in life on the other side. So usually two books, and whenever I go through one, I'll start the next one, whatever that might be.
Well, something like I mentioned to you earlier is whenever I hear of somebody struggling with a technique, or they're not sure about a concept or whatever, they always say, go and check Chewy's video on, go watch, search Chewy's on this technique, or he'll like this concept. And it doesn't matter, like I'm based in Gracie Barra, but people mention Chewy Jiu-Jitsu. I've known people in another club mention it. Even guys who are on other channels will refer to your stuff. Why do you think your material is so good and is so popular? Do you come with a plan when you're doing these videos? Do you think I struggle with this, so I'm going to do it? Do you just make a plan of we're going to cover X, Y, Z, or do you just literally go, yeah, we learned that today, let's do a video on it?
Are you speaking about like the technique videos or like the talking ones?
Pretty much both, because they both really, it's like you kind of sometimes get into our heads, of as a practitioner, because sometimes you're thinking, I had a crappy roll, and you'll have a video on that. And then there's times you'll go and go, I really need to work on X, and I'll go into your playlist and I'll go, it's like you knew that's the evolution I needed, how to do that to get to that part. It's a good coach when you think about technique and the mental side of it and the additional stuff.
So in that sense, I think probably one of the most valuable things is, so if we're saying like, how is it that I connect to people, right? I think that's what we're kind of getting at. Because again, what I'm doing, there's people showing techniques maybe in a different way, but it's the same technique, I think that probably one of the most important things I've done, and I was thinking about this recently. I went to Jordan Peterson had a here in Louisville, he had a like a little, talk, and so I went to that thing, and I remember him saying something, and I've heard him say this before, but for some reason, it just didn't click at that time. It's like one of those things where you might read something, but at the time, it doesn't click until later on. Well, I've been an avid journaler since I was like in my teenage years, right? So I just write stuff down, and it doesn't necessarily even have to have a reason. I just write stuff down about what's going on and what I'm just basically just streams of consciousness, just letting it out there. And it's really interesting what comes back, and you really get in your own head a little bit, and you start to like break down your thoughts and why you think certain things, and it can be helpful. It's probably one of the most helpful things I've done in my life, and I think that's one of the reasons why like people say, well, man, like just like you asked, like how do you get in people's heads? Well, because I remember going through the same shit because I wrote it down. Like I remember like thinking about it. When you write something down, you not type it, you write it with your hand. You have a connection with that thought or that idea. And so I remember being frustrated, man, and talking like in my journal to myself about these things, having these same problems, and saying, all right, I'm going to go change this. And so I did that for years. I've always kind of kept a journal in some shape or form. Even as a black belt, man, I have problems and issues and things like that. Both on the mat and off the mat. And I have those down in a journal, so I can look through them and I can like tell you like, oh man, like the first time I went up against a guy from this particular big name team, I was like nervous as can be. And the next day I submitted him in under 2 minutes. But I was so nervous about that name on that team. So if someone guy says, hey man, I've got this competition coming up and I've got to go up against a guy from this big name team, I'm a little freaked out. What would you say to do? I'm going to be like, I went through the same thing. And so I have a lot of those experiences that I've written down. And I think that's really what it is. It's basically because I'm trying to connect to people to say, look, man, I went through the same stuff because we did. And I'm not trying to become from a place like I'm better than you or that I've got it all figured out, because I don't. And I'm not. But I'm just saying, look, I just like the way that I think about with my students, right? As we all get better and we improve together, we all turn back around. We look at the people that are behind us and we say, hey, come here, extend a hand and let me help you pull you along a little bit. And then when someone's behind you and they're looking for help, do the same thing for them. That's kind of the idea. I think that's the most beautiful way to do it, is just, basically everybody's helping out, pull each other up together.
And do you think the learning jiu-jitsu does that, or is that just, you become a better person because the jiu-jitsu, then that makes you a better teammate, therefore a better training partner, or is they all quite intercombined?
Are you saying, does jiu-jitsu make you a better person?
Yeah, I mean, because I definitely feel a lot more confident, and but I've always been a really nice guy in terms of wanting to help other people. But do you think it's, is it learning jiu-jitsu that makes people want to be better, or how can the people be a better training partner, for example?
Well, I think that when you're saying does it make you better, that's a maybe, right? Because I think that everybody, to be a better person, you got to be able to stare down and look at your own problems, right? Like everybody's so quick to like point the finger at someone else for doing something wrong, and everybody's so quick to tell everybody else what they're doing wrong, right? But it's like, well, what do you do wrong? Like, what kind of problems do you have? And I think that jiu-jitsu is one of those things. And there's anything that you're going to have to struggle with, and that you're going to have mistakes, and then you're going to have to come face to face with your inadequacies, is going to cause this, right? Where you have to go down deep and you have to look at yourself and be like, man, I suck in these particular areas, right? Like you might be kind of soft, right? Mentally, you might give up. I know that there was periods where I would be from guard and I would get so frustrated when I was in bad positions, I would just give up. And I remember thinking like, God, I feel like such a bitch. I'm just giving up, right? And I'm staring at it and having that internal thought, just thinking about that. And so I'm like, well, I don't want that to be that way, so I'm going to change it, right? And so you consciously catch yourself. You sort of identify what things you have wrong with you and focus on those. And I think that jiu-jitsu can cause that. It can help that, right? And then you can become a better teammate because you understand those problems, but it doesn't always happen that way, because there's plenty of people that you hear about, that you find out about, that are like black belts. I hear this all the time. There's black belts that are complete shitheads to their students. There's higher level guys that basically just, run these new guys through the ringer. You have guys that are advanced that don't take a time out to help any of the new people out, right? So just because you went through jiu-jitsu and you got better at it doesn't make you a better person. But if you choose to, because they'll be there along the way, when you have these little things that pop up, right? These little things about yourself that frustrate you, about yourself, because they'll pop up. Take a second and look at them, figure out what they are, and then work to sort of integrate those things and try to, come to grips with them so that you can become a better person. But again, you have to take that magnifying glass on yourself. And a lot of people don't like to do that because it's painful. It's not very fun to do that. We don't like to look at ourselves and say what's wrong with me, right? So but I think that it can help to do that, if that makes any sense to you.
Yeah. And do you think that's why a lot of people start struggling at certain points when they're learning jiu-jitsu, and that because they reach certain plateaus and frustration in the mats because they're not willing to evolve and not willing to face their demons and to open themselves up to change? Sometimes.
I mean, dude, think about I've had so many guys where they're having problems in their games, or they're hitting plateaus, or they're struggling with something, and then in a short conversation we'll talk and be like, we'll identify that they knew all along what they needed to do. They needed to go face down that fear. They needed to go do the thing that they didn't really want to go do, that they know they needed to do, if that makes any sense. And so they know, a lot of times they just have to sort of get it out there. And that's why journaling can be helpful, right? Because a lot of times, even in conversations, you'll have these weird things where things pop up, right? Where especially because I had a conversation just the other day with one of my guys. He's hitting a plateau, and I'm like, like, well, what have you been doing differently? Like, is your game the same? He's like, well, yeah. I'm like, there's your problem. And so just like if you're lifting weights, you got to throw something in there to stimulate growth. And if you want to get better, you're going to have to like move to those areas that are uncomfortable sometimes. It's not going to be easy. Go roll with the people that are the toughest people. Go and embrace it, right? And again, be willing to go with the changes. It's going to happen because change is the only constant. And but a lot of times if you don't have those conversations, if you're not able to all the time, you can write them down and have a conversation with yourself, man. Like Jordan Peterson was talking about at that talk. He was like, just write down things you don't like about you. Like ask yourself in a journal, say like, what do I not like about what I'm doing, or what could I do better, whatever, and you'll get an answer back. You may not like the answer, but it'll come back to you.
And this is probably going to be a difficult question, but if you met the two guys that jumped you now, would it bother you? You know, have you made peace with that memory? Because I sometimes wonder, am I still dealing with being bullied as a kid now as an adult? You know, in the way I am. Like, how do you know when? Like, 'cause you've probably got guys who come in who have maybe had fights and stuff like that, and they want to become tough, or guys who are scared and they want to, become like more confident themselves. But how do we know where we've overcome that aspect of it? Man,
again, this goes back to this, like, we can choose to point the finger, tell everybody what they've done wrong, or we can look at ourselves. And so for me, if I saw those guys, it was three of them. But if I saw the guys again, I would give them a hug, because again, the reason that they did those things to me, it wasn't because they were having a good situation at home, right? Like they went through I'm sure they went through something, like, because again, it wasn't a good area. I think one or two of them were in foster care. They had a really fucked up situation. So those guys, like, that was just a manifestation of that. And I feel sorry for those guys, because I'm sure they're probably, maybe they're doing great for themselves, but I imagine, statistics would tell you that they're probably not doing so hot. But I feel sorry for them, man. That's terrible, right? Because no matter how we may have been poor, but I had a loving family that I had to go to. So I know that some of those guys didn't have that. So I would just give them a hug. And I would also thank them to some degree, because I think that going through that experience, it hardened me, right? Because there was a deep inward sort of situation that I had to go through for, nearly depending on when you want to think about, 7 to 10 years of my life, where I'm going inward and just terrified to be by myself, in public. But eventually I came out of it and I become better for it. And it's because I went through that thing that I think it made me dive so deep into martial arts, and it's made me become stronger, because I didn't want to feel powerless again. And so I think it's one of those things where it helped me out a lot. And so again, every mess like that has something to give you, and we can choose to look back at it and be like, sad about it, or you can be like, man, it's kind of made me who I was, or it made me who I am. And so whether good or bad, I'm glad that it happened, because it's made me who I am today. So
that's the way I look at it. It's if that didn't happen, if X, Y, Z didn't happen, I wouldn't be the person I am today. There's no point changing anything. And is that what you say to anybody listening who's maybe starting martial arts, like after something like that happening to them? Is it just a case of keep going? You learn about yourself, and eventually it doesn't matter.
Right. The thing is have you ever read a book called A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor David Frankl? It's a good book. And he was basically a Holocaust survivor, and the first book is terrifying. Like, he goes through all these things, but it's beautiful in a way, because he found a meaning through this nasty, nasty stuff that he was going through. And I think that one of the beautiful things with all the nasty stuff that we go through in life, whether it be the martial arts stuff where we're fucking up and we're just making mistakes, or where we have really like real life struggles that are really bad, man, like, they teach us something. And when you come out on the other side, they take on a new meaning to you, and you can take lessons away from them that weren't there before. But in his book, he talks about the fact that you can only get those messages, those meanings, those deeper meanings to think, if you go through it and you get on the other end of it, right? Like, so if you go do something difficult and you don't go through it, like, for instance, people will hear people talk about jiu-jitsu and how it's changed their life and how it's made such a difference into them. And someone might hear me talk about it and think like, God, what is this guy talking about? He seems so like culty about this thing because of what it's given him. But anytime you do something that's really tough, something that's difficult, something that you have to like just grind away at for years and years and years without any sort of like payback, right? But then something else happens, there's a different thing on the other end where it means something completely different to you. And so for all those people that are getting started in it, Just like me getting jumped, it made me who I am today. It's part of a whole lot of other stuff. And every mistake, every failure, everything that I screwed up in jiu-jitsu has made me better and has made me a better coach. It's allowed me to help other people. And so no matter what you're doing, like, embrace the failures. As everybody says it, and it's cliche to say it, but it really is the best way to go about it, because they're going to happen and there's no way to get around them. So you can either choose to go with them and let them form you into something better, or you can try to resist it and then you give up. And if you give up and you don't go through to get to the other side of that difficult thing, then you don't get the deeper meanings to things. And then, you don't get what could have been potentially something very powerful in your life.
No, I mean, I love your outlook on life, and I love like your Instagram, for example. There's so many good things in there, and I love the way you look at things. It's not just here's the strength protocol to do, here's this, here's that. You actually discuss how it fits into your life and how you can be a better person from it. I mean, I know we've been going for almost an hour and a half now, and I really appreciate
it's fine, man.
Very thing of your time, but like I've barely touched the surface on some of the questions. I've got I'd love to have you on again, but what if somebody's listening to this and they're thinking, okay, I'm going to give it a try. What should they expect for their first class? I'm sure mine wasn't as normal because I went to an intro lesson, but if somebody's wanting to try jiu-jitsu, what sort of things should they expect? How should they approach the class, in your opinion?
It's going to be different for everybody. The big thing is, first off, set no expectation, right? Don't come in with an expectation of how well you're going to do or how poorly you're going to do. Just come in and be an open book. Don't listen to yourself, right? A lot of people, not everyone's like this. I was like this a little bit, but most people, like when they come in, they put it off. Did you? Let me ask you. Did you put off training for a while before you finally took the leap to do it?
Oh, years.
Okay, see,
I made excuses.
There we go, right? You make excuses, and it's in your head. It's again, this is the whole point, man. Like when you look at the way martial arts are supposed to be taught, they teach you lessons along the way, and I think that jiu-jitsu a lot of times it teaches you lessons right out of the gate, but it's not necessarily talked about. It's an unspoken thing where it's like, hey, listen, man, like internally you're learning things. You just don't realize it. And so, for instance, when you go for your first day, I took a long time. I didn't take that long, but I took, months to get into the gym. Even though I knew I wanted to do it, I was just too scared to do it until I eventually got a few of my friends to come with me because I was nervous. I get guys in here all the time that are training that, they say, man, it took me 6 months. It took me a year to get in here. It took me 2 years to get in here, whatever it might be. And so a lot of people, when they first start to get the idea in their head that they're going to start training, they get nervous. They start to question themselves. Well, could I do it? Man, I'm kind of fat right now. I don't know if I could do it. I'm not in shape. Maybe I should get in shape first. Or, man, I'm kind of small. I don't know if I'm going to be. You'll find whatever excuse it is, whatever inadequacy you think you have, you'll throw that out there and then come up with a reason as not to do something. And so I would say one is, if you start running into that, instead of finding the reason why not to do something, just find a reason why you want to do something and just hang on to that and choose not to listen to all the, the bullshit you're going to tell yourself. And then in regards to when you come in, just no expectations, be an open book, come in and just do it. And again, just be open to whatever comes. And, that would be the only thing I can say, because every person's experience is going to be a little bit different.
Because that's what I was saying to people is like, you don't lose weight to start martial art. You start martial art to lose weight.
Well, just like you were overweight and you weren't eating well, and then you start training, and then you have a reason to do it, right? You have a reason, because the whole reason why you're overweight is because you're eating like shit, you're not working out enough, and you don't have a reason to do it. So then you start working out and you're training. You're like, okay, I don't want to feel like shit on the mat, so I'm going to start eating a little bit better. I'm going to start going for runs every now and then. I'm going to start doing better choices for the rest of my life, and so it's a catalyst for those things.
Because I kept saying, I'm going to do it, and it'd been down to the gym and the one I was originally going to join, and the guys just didn't seem to care. There was no beginner program. They just, it's more a case you were fresh meat for the guys that were the MMA fighters. And then I went to the current gym I'm in now, and the coach had an intro lesson. He introduced you to people. He showed you around. He told you about how things would work. You line up, and the more experienced guys take the newer guys to show them how to do things. You do a warm up and you get the concepts, and it was a completely different environment. People shook hands after. So I think it does come down to the best gyms for you.
Well, right. Well,
there is something.
Well, even like I was saying earlier, like you were probably one of those guys somewhere in the middle, right? Like you weren't the crazy guy that's just going to train like crazy because you're just nuts and you want to do jiu-jitsu. You're one of those guys that's like, listen, if we structure this thing in a way where it's inviting to you, we can probably make you into a lifer. We can make you into a jiu-jitsu lifer. But if we just tell you to go in here and get after it, you're probably going to be like, you know what, I'm good. I'm just going to go do something else.
Because that's one of my biggest regrets is waiting for, like, I kept saying, friends were like, oh yeah, I'll come and do it too. And I ended up they all started getting kids and stuff like that. And I just suddenly got a new job and I just thought, I've seen it on Facebook. And I thought, there's an intro lesson, I'll go try it. And I've made so many good friends from it. I've lost so much weight. I'm so much happier. It's amazing. And you try to explain it to people, but I think it's like you're saying, it's your own individual journey. Nobody will believe it.
Well, right. And just you talking about it the way you're like, oh man, it's changed my life. It sounds like you went to some like Tony Robbins seminar or something. Oh, it changed my life. I got so much better. I'm so much happier. And if people listen to that and they don't know what it is, or they don't get it, they've never taken a time to expand. They're going to be like, what is he talking about? What's wrong with these people?
Because this is the thing, is like when I came on the call, I was thinking, right, okay, I'm going to ask him, I'll have to do some of the basic stuff. I'll have to go, right, what is Jiu-Jitsu?
Oh, yeah.
Why should we do it? But I was so excited because I love your material, I love your content, that I was thinking, okay, I'm going to ask him about this, I'm going to ask him about it. And before we knew it, I was like off 1 hour of like the stuff that's affected me. And, there's so much in, and once you start that journey of Jiu-Jitsu, I think you just can't. It's very difficult to come back off.
It is. It's
because we really struggle.
It's funny. Last year I took some of my coaches. A lot of us are into bourbon. We're in Kentucky, so Kentucky's bourbon country. So we went to this place. I rented this room, a little private room in this whiskey store, and they have like a little whiskey tasting area, and we had food ordered, had some whiskey for them, and we were taken through a bourbon tasting. And so the woman's taking us through this bourbon and whatever else, and I did that for a reason. And after everybody was like nice and loosened up from all the bourbon drinking, I asked them, I said, hey guys, listen, because a lot of these guys were going to start helping me coach. I'm like, hey, listen, why don't you tell me what it is that Jiu-Jitsu's given you, why you choose to come in? Some of these guys have been with me for like a decade. What makes you, been with me around that time? What makes you want to come in and do this stuff day in, day out? Put yourself, subject your body to potential harm, to overcome injuries, to, do all these different things. Take time away from your family, to spend the money. What is it that brings you in? What have you gotten from this? And they all went through, and each one of them had like such a touching story, man. Everything from just like it gave them something that they could recapture some of their the more athletic, aggressive side in their bodies, from what they do day to day, to some people that were getting off of like drugs and stuff, So I mean, it was just a wide swath of things. We had about 15 guys in there. And then, when it was all wrapped up and done, and all the guys left, the woman who had done the bourbon tasting with us, she looked at me, she's like, what is it that you guys do? And I was like, well, we do this, I kind of told her, she's like, God, I feel like I'm supposed to be doing it now, and I'm like, well, it doesn't like the guys are talking about it this way, but it's not kind of that way at first, right? Like, because again, you see people doing it and you don't know what it means to each one of those people separately. But then when you get a bunch of people together that have been doing it for years and they've been through that struggle, the deeper meanings come out of it because of what they've been through to do all this stuff. And again, that's kind of, where we go back to it. Like, it'll mean so much more to you on the other end, and it's hard to express to people in the beginning about that. But it's like if you go through it, it'll be there.
Because it's hard, isn't it? It's when you first start, people are talking about the X guard and Berimbolas, and I'm going to lasso guard, and you transition into mount, and there's half guard, and you think, what the hell are they talking about? And then as you start learning it, you learn like the basics, then you start learning a bit more of the advanced, then you start rolling with people, then you start doing some chokes, then you start going, okay, then you get tapped out for the first few times, you go, okay, that's where I made a mistake. And even though sometimes you come out and maybe you get a random knee in the face or something like that, like there's a mistake during a roll or whatever, or you come away and you get destroyed by every single person you roll with, you think, right, next week I'm going to do X, Y, Z, or next session I'm going to focus on this. I don't know. It's such an enjoyable thing, and you feel like you're part of this little, like you're saying, like a cult, and it's you walk taller, life's different, you see things like, you know, you eat better, you approach, like, you want to go and research, you want to read more, you want to get better sleep, and like we come out jiu-jitsu sometimes and it's, you feel tranquil and peaceful, and you almost forget city life is just outside the door.
Yeah.
Because you kind of bond with the guys. It's the physicality.
Well, you have to be present. You know, like if you have a guy that's trying to choke you, man, you can't be thinking about, you know, your asshole boss at work. You can't be thinking about the girlfriend that was nagging you when you left. You can't be thinking about all that stuff. You like, the only thing that's happening in this moment right now is that there's a man on my back and he's trying to wrap his forearm around my neck, and I've got to stop that from happening. You can't think about anything else. So it's a beautiful thing. It's just like it's a meditative quality. Just like you do meditation, you can eventually get yourself into the moment, and you do the same thing with jiu-jitsu. It's more of an active way to do it that forces you into it.
So do things like visualization and stuff like that, you know, can any of this stuff really help, or is it more just a case of just get in there and get into the moment, you know, focus solely on the guy that's basically wanting to beat you up in a, you know? I
mean, visualization can help. I visualize things all the time. Like, you know, like when I get ready for a match or something, like I'll visualize myself hitting the techniques over and over and over again. And there's actually some studies on the way that we learn. And again, every time you perform a repetition, every time you use a technique, you're learning that technique a little bit better. Even if you've mastered it, even if you're like you've been using it since you're a white belt and you're a black belt now, you're still improving. And they've shown that like if you do like literally visual repetitions with where you can feel you can feel your body doing it while you're thinking about it, that actually has a beneficial quality. It can prime the body to do something. There was a particular study I was reading where they had people doing a particular motor pattern, a task with their body, and they found that there was a benefit. Like they had one person just do it physically, right, with their hands, 100. It was like 180 something times. Then they had another one where they did visual reps. And then they gave him like, you know, 10 tries or whatever. And then they had one that was kind of like half and half or whatever. And they found that the person that sort of visualized it first, then started to do it, actually did better at the end, because they were primed to do it before they were trying to physically do it. And so it can have a beneficial quality as far as techniques go and things like that. And even, you know, I'm very much kind of a person who, you know, sits around and I meditate and I visualize all the things that I want. And, you know, it's sometimes it can be, and people might think it's funny, but, you know, sometimes it can be kind of freaky because you meditate and you visualize something over and over and over again for years sometimes. And then all of a sudden you realize it happened, you know, and so visualization can be incredibly helpful. But again, visualization has to be combined with action, right? So if you get to visualize it, great. Now you need to go out and do something to make it happen and not just sit on that thought or that idea.
Because that's the hardest thing into it, is actually getting off your arse and doing
action. Action is everything.
What is it they say? A plan without action is just a want or a goal. Or I can't remember. There's a really nice phrase for it. Like, so where do you see, you know, the evolution of Chewy Jiu-Jitsu going? Like, what's your plan for it? Are you wanting to start franchising it? Are you wanting to take it somewhere? Or are you just happy seeing the evolution of your guys who come to the gym and stuff like that? You know, do you have like, you were talking there about your visualizing for your business and stuff. How do you see your brand of jiu-jitsu evolving?
Man, you know, I'll tell you right now, this is all sort of, I don't know, it's surreal to me to some degree, because I didn't originally start out like, oh, I'm going to be this YouTube guy, right? What happened was, if you look back at my old videos, I was sharing mostly stuff with my students, right? Like I was like, hey, whatever, you know, show them how to do stuff. And at the time I started a blog in like 2012. And it's so funny because I didn't even like let anybody see it. I would post stuff up there, but I didn't really like try to get it out there very often until later on I found out that people were finding it and they were reading it. But the videos kind of came as a sort of like when people start, like for some reason people started asking me questions, right? Sometimes it would be my students and sometimes it would be people that read the blog and some people that were watching the videos. And I was like, yeah, cool, I'll answer the video for you or answer the question for you. It's cool to help out people. It's fun. And then somewhere along the road, it like turned into something else, right? So originally it started off with just me sharing techniques so that I could remind my students of what we did that last week. And then somewhere along the way, it turned into what it is now, and I guess whatever it becomes. As far as exactly what the plan is, man, I don't like to make exact plans too often anymore. I have ideas and intentions that I want, like somewhere where I want to go, and I have an idea of where that looks like. But at the same time, like you can always have a plan, but at the same time, what's I think was it MacArthur or something, like they had a quote about a plan, like basically your plan never survives like first contact with the enemy, right? So you can go in with the nice plan of how you want it to look, and then as soon as you actually get into the thick of it, it gets all like jumbled, right? It gets all messed up. And so I think it's more important just like to find like something like a goal or like an intention or just some sort of direction that you want to go, right? And then you just get to moving towards that. You may not know how it's all going to work out in the end, but you just do it anyway, right? You don't necessarily have to have it all lined out. Just go and be active and do it consistently. And so with that, it was something like that. Now, as far as where I wanted to go, I don't know yet. I really enjoy teaching the guys in my gym. I like growing the gym. I have people that I'm able to pay now because the gym's doing well, to be instructors, and that's fun. It's cool to be able to like try to do that for more people. I would like to and help out more people. At some point, I've helped out a few gyms, like gym owners. Like they were like, hey man, like, you know, they see our gym's doing really well. We have a really big gym in Louisville, Kentucky, right? And so it's like, some of them are like, hey, can you help me out? Sure. Help them out, and they're able to do a little bit better, and that's fun. So I don't know. You know, I enjoy helping people out, and it's rewarding for me to be able to like throw something out at someone that was helpful to me, and then it comes in and helps them out, and I get to see that come back at me. So,
well,
yeah.
that kind of attitude definitely comes across in your videos. You know, the fact that you're wanting to help, you're doing it for the enjoyment. You're not doing it for the money, for the likes or whatever. You're just doing it because you love jiu-jitsu, you love coaching, you love helping people. The enthusiasm for the sport really comes across in your stuff, and you know, you're not one of these arseholes that you see in some of these coaching videos who, you know, they would just ruin you just to get a decent video.
Oh man.
You know, you'd happily let people choke you out to kind of show them the different ways or ways to improve and stuff like that. So if we were sitting in 6 months' time, imagine, well, and I know I'm pretty much starting my journey of jiu-jitsu, but what would you want to see? Say somebody new has just started their first lesson tomorrow, or in 6 months' time, what progression would you want to see in somebody?
One is I want to see them, when they roll, be able to survive. Right, so you're in a position. Your first task as a white belt is to be able to survive, because when you walk on the mat, you have no clue what you're doing. Your first goal is to learn how to survive, and that's about becoming comfortable with those uncomfortable situations by having some, you know, big, you know, 270, you know, or whatever stones, like power lifter from Scotland sitting on top of you, right? Like having the big guy sitting on top of you, you got to be comfortable with that. Then after you can survive, then it becomes a sort of a matter of like, if I'm watching someone, the way that I kind of look at them is, if I show them a technique, can they begin to like put it together? Can they like, do they know something from the basic positions? If I say, hey, I need you to like practice like some basic moves from full guard, they don't look at me with like a question mark. They're like, okay, yeah. They may not be perfect from them, but they have the idea of what it is. And so those are the big things within a 6 month time period: being able to survive, and just basically being able to have an idea of like what's kind of going on, right? You're not going to be good from it. You're not going to be the best by any stretch, but you'll have a basic idea of what the sort of overall sort of idea is with jiu-jitsu, as far as when we say rolling or when you're trying to dominate position.
Perfect. No, I'm loving it. I mean, it's so good to sort of rack your brain and, you know, to actually see the person behind the videos. It's so good to see that you're just the same.
I was going to say, well, I say this to
some...
everybody. I hope it's not too much different, because people like, they'll meet me and they'll come up like, dude, I watch your videos all the time, and I'm like, well, man, hopefully I didn't let you down, because I'm just me, you know.
Unfortunately, there's been some people who have interviewed, and I thought, ooh, you know, that you're definitely putting on a show for the
That's
camera.
unfortunate, isn't it?
Because because you want to say, well, I didn't realize you're this much of an arsehole, but then you think, I won't be interviewing them again.
Man, the bad thing about that is, and tell me your experience here, I just interrupted you, but man, that sucks, because it's like, you know, you see some people and a lot of times you like them, and you know, and some people can even become almost like, and it's our own fault, we shouldn't do it, but you know, we look at people like a hero to some degree, like, oh man, I really like this guy and for what he stands for and whatever, and then you meet him and you're like, oh man, like, you're not what I expected at all. It's a letdown. Granted, we did it ourselves because we impose an image on someone, but at the same time, it's still kind of a letdown because they put on a show in some fashion.
And then there's people who you interview, you know, like yourself, Diamond Dallas Page, people like that who they're just, you think they could literally have just come out their videos and they're exact same. You know, you can feel the passion, you can feel it. Like, this is what I was saying to one of my friends, is like, you deserve the likes and the fan base that you have, because you put so much effort into it that if I met you in a shop, well, you'd happily sit and speak to somebody, like, you'd happy show somebody on the mats, you're happy to take people into the gym that are visiting. It's like, it's about the sport and helping others and developing others, and what you get from their development. It's sadly it's missing in a lot of guys, and I think a lot of them, sadly, these internet stars change because they think they're, I don't know, not better,
but I mean, isn't that what it's about being, like, I mean, to me, being a good human, just to your fellow man, right? I mean, isn't that, I mean, granted, I'm by no means like, someone that's like super famous or anything like that, but to me, it's like, isn't it about just, I mean, like, when it boils down to it, isn't it like we're all trying to, like, we're all like, no matter what differences we have, whether like you're Scottish, you're Canadian, you're whatever, like American, like whatever country you come from, when you boil it down to it, man, humans are all kind of doing the same shit, right? Like we want to be comfortable. We want to find some people where we feel like we kind of belong. We want to have enough food to feed our bellies, enough water to take care of us. We want to have a place where we can sleep in safety, and we want to have a significant other of some sort that we feel comfortable with, that we can do things with, right? I mean, that's, you boil it down, and maybe rear family. That's kind of what you do. And humans, no matter what, we focus on all these damn differences. Like, I'm from here, I'm from this, I'm this religion, I'm that, whatever. Like, but when you boil it down to, we're all so damn similar. We're far more similar than we are different. And if we can choose to just help each other out a little bit and realize that we're all in this damn thing together, life's a little bit easier, isn't it?
If you take people off the pedestal, you realize everybody's shit still stinks,
man.
And that's what I realized is, like, I interviewed Mark Bell recently, and he was so deep and philosophical, and he was like, oh, I don't really get a chance to ask, to speak like this. And I was thinking, I love finding out different things about people, and, getting them to go into their childhood and talk about their favorite meal from childhood, and things that they don't get in normal interviews. I love Mark Bell's stuff,
man. He's always fun to listen to.
So, I mean, well, that was actually going to be my next question was, so I love doing this thing called the fast break questions. Like, I throw prompts out and you kind of just answer, the first sort of things that come into your mind.
Rorschach test or something.
If you were, well, I could get a lot worse. So if you were to go to YouTube, what kind of videos, like what kind of people do you subscribe to?
Well, you were talking about like Mark Bell. I subscribed to Mark Bell years ago because I was watching some of his videos in like 2015 where I was like trying to like as people started to ask me questions from the blog, and then I'm like, man, like I kind of want to know how to do something. So there was a handful of guys, but I really enjoyed his he was still like being like this guy who's a badass at this thing that he does, but at the same time he was still being kind of fun, I mean, so that there's guys like that. I mean, but there's a handful of guys that that I would say that I watch, but just again, I can't say any one person necessarily in particular.
So what's guilty pleasure? Yours?
What's a guilty pleasure? Like, what would define the guilty pleasure for me so I can get that better?
I've had some people go for like ice cream. Some have said a particular song. Some have said, oh, I'm a super fit guy, but I'll sit and drink full fat Coke.
Okay. So,
or
I got you. So guilty pleasure. So, I actually talked about this on my Instagram this morning. I don't eat a lot of junk food, but I do like ice cream. I don't eat it very often, but when I do, there's a really good place down in Louisville called Comfy Cow, and I'll go there and they have this really, really good ice cream. And I'm a fat ass, man, so like I have to be very, very careful with myself because if I see food, I eat it. And if I was to buy like a thing of ice cream, I'm going to eat the whole thing in one sitting because I'm not a quitter. I'm going to eat the whole thing. And so I go to the ice cream shop and have them ration it out to me because I can't control myself because I don't eat it very often. I don't know if this is a guilty pleasure, but something that some of the guys find funny. I'm such a history geek. So like there was I'll do all kinds of weird stuff. But one day, one of my business partner, Joe, he came in and I was lifting weights one morning and I just got done reading about the Ottoman Empire. And they had they had marching band music that they would play when they were storming the walls of Vienna and all this stuff. And so I was like, man, I want to see what that music sounds like. And so he comes in and all these horns and drums are playing. And he's like, what the hell are you listening to? And I'm like, it's Ottoman marching band Turkish music that they would play when they were storming walls and, stuff like that. So weird history stuff sometimes. Like people think it's strange, but, but I would say as far as guilty pleasures related to food, probably ice cream would be the biggest one.
Because that's what I was going to ask. I remember reading when I was researching you about like the history thing. And have you got a favorite time period? That
I go on kicks. So I start off, I'd go from one place to the other, and just like for instance, a couple of years ago, it was the 4 years ago, right, 2014. It was the centennial of World War One. I didn't know much about World War One because as an American, we don't really talk about it much. We didn't do much. For some Americans think that they did we have a sort of a misplaced sort of bit of confidence in what we did in the World Wars. But during the first one, we did very little except for make stuff. And so I was interested, like, well, what happened? And then when you get into World War One, well, then you got to go backwards and you got to look at, the way that the governments and how the monarchies were kind of like were losing power. Then you go back to, 1815 and you think about like, the Napoleonic era. And then to get to there, you got to go backwards. And so it just leads down these little rabbit holes. And so eventually I'll stop and move on to something else. But, I shift from time to time just depending on what I'm interested in.
Yeah, because you're like me, I get like Genghis Khan, the ancient Roman stuff like the modern stuff kind of bores me. I like the like Alexander the Great and stuff like that, and I get a kick out of all that kind of like seeing people who vastly surpassed where they should be in life, of the time. So this comes to my favorite question now. You're sitting in your house, you're throwing a dinner party, you and your girlfriend, you got 5 empty seats. Now you can pick people who they can be real or fake, alive or dead, but this is your dream dinner party. Who's on the invite list?
God bless, man. That's a tough question. There's so many people I'm fascinated with. And my fascination with them sort of varies. So it would be like you'd have to tell me, like, depending on what time period. Like, so right now I'm listening to a great courses lecture on the Roman, basically the Roman Republic to Roman Empire. And so like I'm going back through all the history and I'm like reading about or listening to things about like, Pompey and Julius Caesar and Crassus and all these guys. And so now I'm like, man, I wonder if those, because, with Roman history, you got to remember it was kind of made in a bit of a theatrics. You know what I mean? It was made in a way to be read. And so you're kind of like, I wonder what those guys were really like. How big were they? Like, what did they talk like? These things go through your head. For me, there's a lot of people, and again, it's hard to name 5, but there's people that I would want to meet in history, and I would want to sit there and just see, like look at them and be like, what were you like? Were you like they said you were, and were you a little different? Like, what were you like? Because again, just like we said, like when you get to pull back the curtain, a lot of times things are a little bit different than what was led to believe. And so for me, there's a lot of guys in history, and like I said, it's so hard because of how like just geeky I am about it. That would be one of those things that I have to sit down on that question for like months to find it. But I would want to go through these different people and figure out like, who are you? Like and ask them questions and just see who they were behind the history, behind the writings of them, because I didn't get to meet them. So there's a lot of guys, but I wouldn't be able to pinpoint just one or the other.
Because I think that's the thing, isn't it? Is when you start learning more about a person, you can see why they roll in a certain way, why they favor certain styles of jiu-jitsu, and then you can look and go, okay, then it explains the type of person and personality they are, and it's quite amazing how it all interlinks, and it's like you're saying, it's jiu-jitsu's a reflection of yourself.
Well, and even like, I was thinking about this, like, there's a guy like, and I'm sure you've heard him, like Emerson, right? Like Ralph Waldo Emerson. So he was a philosopher, right? And he has some amazing writings. But then there's another book that this guy wrote where they took his journals apart, and basically it was talking about how that dude went through the writing process. And this is true for a lot of creatives. There's another cool book called How Creative People Work or something like that, where it goes through the writing process and the working process of artists. And you realize that these amazing people that seem to just have it all figured out, right? they think all their shit sucks, right? Like the Emerson, for instance, he was talking about how tough it was to write anything worth reading. And then he has these tons of works that are just simply amazing, right? And there's tons of artists that think all their work sucked. And again, we look at it, we're like, oh my God. So it would be so interesting to meet someone that has either influenced me in some way or has, went down in the annals of history and be like, who were you? How did you think about yourself, right? Because we all know who you are, and you've affected so many people on some profound level. But how did you think you really were? Even like, what was it? Julius Caesar is said to weep when he was conquering Gaul because he thought he hadn't done enough because Alexander had conquered the world by the same age, right? And he's still like messing around in France, so it's like, what did you think about yourself? That would be a fascinating question to ask someone. Like, we think you're this way. What do you think about yourself?
And that's the thing. It's like, what are you going to be remembered by? Like, how are people going to think of you after or away from the gym?
Mm-hmm.
Or, what's your legacy in this earth? And I think a lot of people are going to struggle to kind of give the answer. And that's why I always say to people is do things like jiu-jitsu, do things like self-development. If you want to go for something, go do it. Life's too short to sit and think, oh, well, there might be an afterlife. There might be a chance to do this when I've retired, because a lot of times people don't make it, unfortunately. And
life is precious, man. You don't know when it's going to end. It could end tomorrow for any of us, right? So, like, just like we were talking about like earlier, like for me, your plans are nice, right? But if there's something you want to do, just say F it and just do it, right? Go take action upon it, and make the pieces fit along the way, because they'll find a way. But if there's something you want to do, don't get hamstrung by thinking about it too much or not letting yourself just go do it.
Well, I've got two final very quick questions.
They're probably not going to be quick because I ramble a lot.
Well, I definitely want to have you on because there's so many things I'd love to do, like an Ask the Expert with you, because there's so many things about components and jiu-jitsu training, philosophy. I think we could talk for another like 6 days on this easy. So I hope you've had nearly as much fun as I have, because I've loved this. So this is one of the main reasons, is to interview people that I admire, and I think you definitely deserve every bit of success you've got, and I can't wait to see more videos. And if you fancy giving me a shout out at some point,
cool.
That'd be brilliant.
Whenever you release the podcast, I'll share it with my email list and the different places and stuff like that. No problem.
Anything like that,
yeah,
that'd
sure.
be amazing. So if you had to sum up your life in a movie or a song title, what would you pick? And you're the first person I've ever asked.
Oh my God, a movie or a song title. Well, first, I don't even own a TV, so I haven't seen I haven't owned a TV for over basically 10 years, so I don't even watch movies very often. Every now and then I'll go to the theater and watch them, but a song title or a movie.
Or it can be or a TV show, or is there a mantra or something that springs to mind that sums you up as a person?
I don't know that there's a mantra, but it would be something that would have to imply like overcoming self-limiting belief, right? Like, I think that's the biggest thing, because again, changing who you think you are. And I think everybody goes through this that gets any sort of even moderate a little bit of success, right? But you couldn't have told me when I was 18 years old that I would be 33 years old, that I would own a gym with 400 and some, it's always more, but it's 400 plus students between boxing, CrossFit, and Jiu-Jitsu. And then I would own a gym. I would be able to do what I like for a living. That people would know who I am across the world. That would be something I couldn't fathom that. I still can't really wrap my head around it. It's strange to me. But again, that the only way that happened was because I kept doing something. And again, I have to now catch up kind of to reality a little bit. So self-limiting belief, something that implies overcoming that. And I think that's something that every one of us deals with whenever we get into something that's tough. We can't think of ourselves as doing those things, and then it's hard. And then like after we do it, then we kind of play catch up afterwards. Like, you lost some weight. So you probably feel better, but I know that I did for a long time. I still saw myself as the fat guy, right? Even after I had abdominal muscles showing, I was like, I'm still the fat guy. right? I'm still a big fat guy. And so a long time, it took a while for me to like sort of grow into that. So, and then sort of embody that, just like jiu-jitsu, you train the moves, you embody it first, it becomes a part of you, and then you can think about it afterwards. It's the same thing. You go out and accomplish something, you go out and do the damn thing that you wanted to do. And after you've done it, then you can become kind of like conscious of it and be like, oh yeah, I've done that thing. Cool. Like I've changed, I've become better. So something with self-limiting beliefs. That's the long, vague, indecisive answer.
Do you know the song title that's just sprung to mind is "Keep on Rolling" by Limp Bizkit.
Keep on rolling. The song title, the song probably wouldn't work, but the song title would work. Yeah, keep on rolling. Just keep doing it. Just keep going, right? Like just keep going, and then rolling implies sometimes like rolling with the punches, right? Like just rolling with all the mistakes and all the bad stuff that's going to happen along the way.
Well, I can honestly not say thank you enough for this. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been an absolute joy. The floor is open to you. If somebody wants to find out more about you, maybe come to the gym and train, follow you on social media, how can we keep in track of the latest projects and the evolution of Chewy?
So you can go to Chewjitsu, Chewjitsu. You can go that. You can just put that in to the internet. You can go on my website, chewjitsu.net. Because .com was taken, although I'm working to buy that domain now. But it's a little bit more expensive than what it should be. And then you can go to YouTube, put in Jiu-Jitsu. That's where the bulk of obviously my content is. You can check that out. But I'm also on Instagram and all that stuff. If someone ever wants to come down and train, I say this all the time on my videos. I don't foresee this changing. I don't charge mat fees or drop-in fees. So if you want to come train, you've watched a video and you want to come train with me and the guys, like the gym's open. Like I have a guy that's flying down from New York in like a next month who's like, I just want to train down there. I'm like, well, come on down. Again, we're normal dudes, but if you want to come train with us, the gym is open to you. And if you really have a great time and you want to support it, you can buy like a t-shirt or something. So yeah, the gym's open. And if you guys ever want to come down, just shoot me an email. It's on my website. You can send me a question about the training here and kind of go from there. So I think that would encompass all those different areas.
Yeah, I love that outlook. Well, the floor is open to yours. If there's any projects coming up, any seminars, anything that you'd like to promote,
man, I've got nothing to promote at this time. There's always something going on. So, if someone wants to check me out, I'm there on the internet and they can check it out. And if I've got something going on, I'll let you know about it for sure. We're all throwing our stuff out there, trying to let our voice be heard. So, I'll share it with you guys. But other than that, again, take advantage of all the content that's there, and I hope it's helpful.
Well, I cannot thank you enough. I seriously enjoy this, and I think it's been a pleasure speaking, and I really want to have you on again, and we can go into specifics from then, but I know we're almost double the time, so
well, thank you, brother.
Again. You've been an
I appreciate you bringing me on. It was a fun time, and I enjoyed hanging out with you. And yeah, if you'd like to talk again sometime, we can set it up. I know we played tag a little bit for that first one, so it is what it is. It turned out to be something good, I think.
That's it for another week. Thanks for listening. Absorb it, practice it, use it. Until next time, keep trying to hit that next level in your life.